one time we were driving through the countryside, and we went into this shop. We just pulled in, to get little things for the road and everything. This guy was in there, his old French shop, and a dog on the floor. And the dog has a little sign next to him that says, "For sale, €5." And I thought, that's pretty strange. And I said, "Excuse me, monsieur, this dog is for sale for €5." He goes, "Yes, you can take the dog. €5, it's no problem." And then he went in the back to get some things. And the dog looked up and he said, it's really a good deal. I am a good deal. You should take me, because I have been through many things. I come from a very long line of dogs that has been here in Normandy. We were at the beaches, and my great-great-grandfather dog, and I know how to make cheese and wine, and I'm a very good French dog. And the guy came back out, and I said, I think I'll take the dog too, but I have to ask, why so cheap? And he's like, "This dog is not worth more than €5." And I said, "But he talks." And he says, "Yes, but he's a liar." So you guys know a bit about me. I'm going to tell you a little bit more, but I want to know a little bit about you guys. So can I ask who in here is doing copy, straight copywriter? Okay. And entrepreneur, your own business? Okay, and working for somebody else? What's it? The calluses, that's right. And who here is just in the wrong room this morning? What's that? For the timeshare meeting. Yes, we can talk about that. Right. Right, well, I'll have a contract you can sign. All right, great. Well, so we have the technical difficulty here. I do have another technical difficulty I'm just warning you of in case it comes up. I have had this bad cough for a while. I already know what it is, went to a doctor. I'm already taking stuff for it. However, if in the middle of the presentation I start coughing, you guys just look the other way and stuff, and then it'll be over. But I'm hoping that won't happen. So I hope my voice will hold out. I was watching that guy crawl across the football field in the video, and I was thinking, I gotta crawl across the football field here. I hope my voice makes it to the end of the day. So what else can I tell you? Tell me about some of the businesses that you guys are working in, so that we can just kind of refer back to them while we're talking. So who here is a entrepreneur? What do you do? All right, trained salespeople. How about you? Medical marketing. Help people with marketing. Small business lead gen. Who else has got something? Someone else tell me something else that's interesting that they fitness, personal development, physiotherapist. How many people are in health stuff? And in financial, anybody with financial products? Newsletters, any info publishing kind of stuff? I do mostly info publishing stuff with Agora. That's how I got my start. And I have done some health stuff, some travel stuff, but I think that what we're going to do here is going to apply across the board. So.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in.
Okay.
Grab this. While these guys, I apologize for the technical difficulties. These guys are fixing it. But let's kick it off so that we don't, so that we get rocking and rolling. And so I want to really make sure that everybody in the room knows how much of a special day today is. So for those of you who don't really know who John, or as I think his closest friends call him, Jack, is. So this is a guy that is really a legend in the world of direct response, and I don't say that lightly. He's been around since the very beginning of Agora. He was really, this is to show you who you're about to learn from today. So John was there. Jack was there at the very beginning of the creation of most of the copywriting training tools that are out there today. So things like, and you've heard me talk about how I learned the 4 U's from Mark Ford. Well, you know, Jack was there when that was being decided, when, you know, when they were thinking through, how do we train copywriters? How do we teach this skill? How do we develop these all-stars? What do we teach them? What do we show them? How do we turn these methodologies into a repeatable framework? This gentleman that you're going to learn from today was there and played a role in that. And since then, he's played a substantial role in the education of I mean, thousands and thousands of copywriters from around the world through AWAI. Of course, I believe that everybody in here knows that Jack co-authored, along with Mark Ford, no relation, one of the best marketing books or copywriting books on the planet, Great Leads. Every single one of you in here should read that. Jack is an amazing copywriter, an amazing writer. He is a guy that has seen the evolution of copy over the years as it relates to what things were like when generating sales and writing copy and headlines 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, as we've seen new media buying changes, copy with Facebook ads and whatnot. And he's continued to be the go-to teacher really on the planet as it relates to copywriting. He's the guy that really put the structure behind lead types and understanding their application and when they get used and when they're most appropriate and when they're not. He's really the guy that put that, he's the guy that put that together. And so all of you in here know how critically important the lead is. We're talking about the first 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 words of your marketing campaign. Right, and how the lead, the headline and lead and the offer make or break your campaign, make or break your promotion, make or break whether the thing that you launch makes money. You heard me say, I believe it was yesterday, that I've never, in all the years that I've been doing this, have I gone back and edited the first line of the 4th paragraph on the 3rd page or whatever, right? Because that's not a make or break component. It's not a piece that changes it's not a piece that swings big results. The lead is. You get the lead wrong and you could be dead in the water. You get it right and it makes everything else so much easier. You get the lead right and it makes everything else so much easier. And so what today is about is the guy that created the framework around leads, sharing with you what that needs to look like for you. Understanding the purpose and aim of the lead, understanding the different lead types, understanding the structure behind the different lead types, understanding when you want to use one versus the other, understanding what the different ones look like and how you can take an offer and use multiple lead types. And so the way this is going to go down, and then I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to turn this over to the man, is the first part of the day. We are going to all learn from Jack. I'm just as excited, if not more excited, than you guys to let him teach us what he knows about lead types. And so we're going to do that for the first part of the day. That's going to take us into lunch. And then after lunch, we're going to come back and we're going to have a kind of the boot camp aspect of today, where we are going to dissect, review, analyze, talk about your leads that were submitted. We're going to write some copy. We're going to look at the copy that was written. We're going to talk about it. We're going to rip it apart. We're going to show you where to change things, where to tweak things, where to enhance things. We're probably going to bring a couple of you up and show you what is involved in working with a client or product owner and extracting out all the nuggets and gems needed to be able to craft a compelling lead. And by the end of the day, my aim for you, our aim for you, is to make sure that you have a level of mastery as it relates to lead types. And so I would encourage you to ask whatever questions it is that you have. Don't sit back and yes, we're filming this. This is not a formal, this is, I got a question, help me understand. Make sure that you leave by the end of today and you've got all of your questions, all of your needs taken care of as it relates to leads. Is that fair? Yes? So do me a tremendous favor. Give this guy the reception that he deserves. Stand up and welcome Jack Ford.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Can you guys tell me when you want to take, can you, back there, you tell me when you want to take a break, okay? Because I don't know what's scheduled for a break. So we'll see what we can get through. Do you mind if I stand down here instead of standing up there? Is that all right? Okay. So it's just, since we've been waiting, and I mean, let's just jump right in. Okay, so what happens here? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to show you some things, and I'm going to ask you some questions, all right? So here is a promotion. A lot of my samples that I used for this are actually print samples because they're ones that I happen to have scanned in ready to go, but I think that they also help show things a little bit better than doing a VSL, so we don't have to sit here and watch somebody do a video. Because not all the VSLs have transcripts. So here's a promotion. Headline, you can see. I'll read that text underneath. It says, "It's the government loophole of a lifetime, a rarely published program that could pay you 550% more than regular Social Security. There are 5 easy ways to participate so you can begin collecting your checks immediately, no matter what your age, income, or job status." And you can see that other thing there says, from the New York Times, "The antidote to shrinking stock portfolios and tiny fixed income returns." And I'll just read the first line of this thing. "Dear reader, ordinary Social Security is a retirement ripoff. You pay thousands of dollars, et cetera, et cetera." Now, the lead, as Todd was just saying, the lead is that part at the front where you are trying to get people engaged enough that they say, "Okay, tell me more." So that may be 10 lines, it may be 100 lines, it may be 500, maybe a whole page, depending on how much you need to get those people to pay attention to you. So why did this work? And I'll repeat what you say or something so we can all hear it. Who has any idea why they think that this worked? It did work. Okay. Okay, so it's intellectually interesting. It raises your curiosity, right? That's one reason. Upper Social Security, you hear that thing and you're like, what is that? Okay, a loophole or a shortcut, right? Feels like something that you get a little bit of an edge on somebody else just by knowing. Right. Unique. It's something else you haven't heard it before, that differentiation idea. Okay, here's another one. So this one says, "Sick of getting gouged when gas prices go up? How about a little gas pump revenge?" And then says underneath, "Thanks to a little known loophole that Ronald Reagan signed into law back in 1986, any American can collect from today's 1086 gas pump payback plans. I'll show you how to receive up to 12 large payments per year with big oil indirectly footing the bill. Cover gas costs, fund your retirement, and more, et cetera, et cetera." And it goes on to continue on that. Why did that work? Okay, hits a pain point, being high gas prices. This actually went out when gas was around $5 a gallon. It's something that affects everyone. So it hits people, like you come in, and I know you probably drive, so, okay. little bit of that the German, the Schadenfreude thing. It's like, yeah, I can get a dig at somebody that's been getting a dig at me. Anyone else? Okay, so another one, like curiosity is like, yeah, I want to know. You can bring somebody in, information gap. Okay, how about that one? Big Book of Free, laissez-faire's Big Book of Free. Uh, over 127 ways to get what you want and need for free, or for pennies on the dollar, which is on the book. And then underneath here it says, from playing free golf to claiming free gold, this complete manual has you covered. Find out why I'm giving away a limited number of copies today and how to claim yours before they're gone. I'll even pay for the shipping, et cetera, and the copy underneath goes on. Why'd this work? Curiosity, scarcity, limited number of copies. What else? It's free. It's free. I get something free. Right. Right. So and yeah, people like to get free stuff. Also, there's 127 ways to get stuff free. Information gap again. I don't know what those 127 ways are, but I feel like there's probably something in there for me. Okay. And just real quick, this one, myth or miracle, cholesterol, high blood pressure, things. These are basically natural remedies for these ailments. Can we guess why that one reason why that might have worked? Myth or miracle? Curiosity. Pain around the, so it's, yeah, so, well, or, okay, well, that's an interesting angle. So on the one hand, you've got common problems that they're hitting here. Cholesterol, high blood pressure, weight loss, and depression. Everybody in this room probably knows somebody who has addressed one of those or more, maybe even yourself. And there are shortcut ways to treat them, things that don't involve the doctors, things that aren't maybe not be as scary. And so you have a problem and then you have a solution, but then you also maybe that idea that people want that different angle, a curiosity angle. Okay, America 2020, Survival Blueprint. This is all that was on the cover of this. There was more that delivered on this on the inside. That's the actual lead, not just the headline. But why do we think that might have worked? Like fear, a little bit of fear. Blueprint makes it a little bit easier. And survival maybe implies that there's something coming. Right. Okay, how about this one? Develop a memory so powerful you're like a human computer. And I don't know if we need to read all the stuff underneath, but I promise you it's all about that idea. Why did that work? Yeah, who doesn't want to have a memory as good as a human computer? And the imagery of being the human computer, that puts something in your mind. It helps you make you imagine it. All right, we've got lots of theories about why these things work. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is an economist in a cave where they have to live on scraps with bones and things on the floor, and he's telling his wife, if you just keep harping on the bullshit results, you'll never be able to see what a perfectly sound economic theory it was. Okay. The thing about theories about why things work, now I think we could probably all agree with probably some good ideas of why that stuff worked. But anybody who does direct response knows that just having theory isn't enough. You can't just you can't roll out on a whole campaign based on theory. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and it's really expounding on something that Todd said in my introduction. A long, long time ago, in a galaxy that we're in right now, I was working at Agora Publishing as an intern. I was getting $15 a day. And I wanted to turn that into a job. I started writing articles and things like that. The company was really small. We had about 20, 25 employees, and it was, I think it was maybe doing 10, 15 million a year, and they had only one copywriter, and that copywriter was Bill Bonner. And it was getting increasingly difficult for him to write the promotions for this company that was growing slowly. And he was trying to figure that out. And at about the same time, uh, an attractive young woman, there's always an attractive young woman, came by from the production department and said, "Hey, we're getting business cards. Do you want business cards?" And I was in my mid-20s, and I said, "Sure, business cards. I've never had business cards. I thought I'd be able to hand them out at happy hour, because I felt like that was what you were supposed to do. Didn't know what I was doing." And she got business cards and dropped them off like a week later when she was going around dropping off the business cards. And Bill saw that I had business cards, and he said, "Oh, John, business cards? It's so corporate. What do you want business cards for? That's, I didn't think that was your style." And I said, "Honestly, Bill, I got it because I wanted to hand them out at happy hour." And he said, "Well, that's the only respectable reason I can think of to get business cards, but what did you put down for your job?" And I said, "Copywriter," because I knew he was a copywriter, and I figured that's a prestigious position. So he said, "Oh, well, great. Move your desk into my office, and I'll teach you how to write copy." So he started trying to teach me how to write copy, which was basically handing me promotions like that and saying, "Read these and think about why they worked." And then I would write something, and then he would come and he'd cross it all off and say, "You should not use any of this. Maybe you can start there," or something. But he didn't really know how to teach how to do copy because there wasn't a lot of terminology. Plenty of books to read, and I did read all those books, and I'm sure you guys have read all those books. So we had to try to figure out how to teach me to write copy, and he was in the process of doing that for, I think, a year or so. And Mark Ford, who came along as a consultant. And then he had to figure out, well, Mark had a teaching background, so he said, "Listen, we got to sit down. We got to come up with a language to use to teach people how to write copy." And so we did. So we sat in a room, as Todd was saying, we sat in a room, and literally, I think Mark got a boardroom promotion. He put it on the table, and it said, he said, "Okay, these guys are really good at writing bullets. What is it that make bullets work?" And he started sifting through, and he's like, "Well, one of them is that, they're always something that's useful to somebody. And they're also really original, or they're unique, and they seem to be better when you get really specific, like ultra specific. And a lot of them have urgency, like something that you have to do right now." He said, "Well, that's good. That's 4 U's. Well, those are the 4 U's of writing bullets." It's like, let's add that to the list. Then we came up with the 4 P's, and we came up with the Barstool speaking theory of how copy is usually conversational. And then we came up with the 3-legged stool of the things that you need to have in copy. And we went through, we had a list, I think, of over 200 terms for teaching copy. So that way we were able to talk to people who were trained writers, but also talk to people who had products and say, "This is what works in copy. This is the secret to making it better." And when something didn't work, I say, "Well, you're lacking one of the essentials of the 3-legged stool," or something like that. So for a long time, we went around teaching that to people. And years went by. Agora grew. I had been the first copywriter at Agora. We now have, I have no idea how many at Agora, possibly in the hundreds. And we've trained many going through, and those 200 secrets became the core of a training course that some of you guys probably know already. Fast forward to a time when I was on a plane on my way to France, where Bill, Mark, and I were going to teach another crop of copywriters who were at Bill's chateau about how to write copy. But by this time, we were sick of going through all those secrets and realizing that these guys were coming to the countryside. They're getting real drunk at night. They're coming in. They're really tired. There's no such thing as air conditioning in France, so they're in this hot chateau in the middle of the summer. They're all kind of like passing out there, and you're teaching them these 200 things. We had to find a different way to try and make it more interesting and more simple, and just to try and focus on what counts, because that's what we felt like they would take home. So on the plane, I had read this article about movie plots, that there are only a certain number of movie plots, and that if you take all the Hollywood movies, you can categorize them in these movie plots. They're the Romeo and Juliet ones, the Beauty and the Beast ones, the force from somewhere else, like the alien from outer space, that kind of thing. And they all go through those things. Yet there have been hundreds, thousands of great movies, even though they all follow these same patterns. And I was talking to Mark, who was also a movie buff, on the way to the chateau from the train station. And I mentioned the article, and he said, you know, that's kind of interesting. What if that was a kind of thing that we could do with promotions? We could figure out how promotions for almost any product that we can think of are going to fit into certain models, certain patterns. And so we got to the chateau, and you know, it's funny how many of these stories involving Mark are like around a cigar and a bottle of something. We got a good bottle of French red wine, and Mark broke out one of his cigars. He broke out 2 cigars. I took 2 puffs and felt sick, and told him it was wasted on me. But and then we had a stack of promotions, print promotions, and we just started dividing them up. And I think we did that till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And then the next day, that's what we taught. We taught that there are, what we had found was 6 different lead types. And that's where the Great Leads book idea was born. The idea here is not that there are only 6 lead types. It's possible that there are other lead types. You can certainly probably find examples in your own different industries of other ways to get into a promotion, and you'll say, well, that doesn't really fit your model, and that's fine. And you're going to also see times where the lead types overlap. It's hard to tell, is that this type of lead or that type, and we'll talk about what the types are. Or they have 2 of the elements, 2 of the different lead types are all in one lead. That's fine too. The idea here is more like when you go to a restaurant, and that restaurant, whenever we go home to visit family in Philadelphia, my mother-in-law likes to go to this diner, and they have like a 10-page menu, and each page has like 50 items on it. So we inevitably spend the beginning just like flipping through, like trying to figure out. I mean, we always all get the same things that we always get every time we go there, but we read the stupid menu because there's so many damn choices. The idea here is to just try and narrow your choices. You're going to sit down, you're going to be working with a copywriter, you are a copywriter, and you're going to look at a product and you're going to say, this is that kind of product. This is the kind of audience I'm directing it to. Maybe this is the best place to start for a lead type. So it's just this, the idea here is to simplify what we're doing. And I just want to preview this as valuable because somebody pointed out to me that the book has listed at times on Amazon for $722.87. So it must be good advice. Actually, I think it was because it was out of print. But now I think you can get it on Kindle for like $9 or something. I bet if Rich Jeffrin was here, he could point out that I think that you can find it free on some Russian website that's pirated it too. Okay, we owe a huge, this is a name that I'm sure has come up over the last 3 days. I know it came up a lot yesterday because I heard it, and justifiably so, and we owe a large debt, Mark Ford and I, owe a large debt to Gene Schwartz in breakthrough advertising, which I do think if you only read one book, it should probably be breakthrough advertising. It is different from any copywriting. Like you read a copywriting book, how many pages of somebody telling you these are the magic words that you can use to persuade people? How much can you do that? Not too much, but Gene Schwartz thing is really something that teaches you about the business of persuasion inside out. So he has this great quote in here. Copy cannot create desire for a product. It can only take the hopes, dreams, fears, and desires that already exist in the hearts of millions of people and focus those already existing desires onto a particular product. This is the copywriter's task, not to create this mass desire, but to channel and direct it. I heard somebody saying, I think it was Todd actually, said it yesterday. Hugely important idea. You guys probably are advanced enough to already know that. But it's the kind of thing that you have to be reminded of. We are not taking a product and shoving it down somebody's throat. We're going out there and finding out what it is that they really care about, where they are, and we're bringing that to them and saying, look, if that's how you feel, I'm going to try and direct you. And this is what the leads are for. The leads are the opening mouth of that path, that funnel, that thing that brings those people in so that they can realize that maybe what they care about and what you have some kind of connection. So that's what we're trying to do with the leads. That's all that the lead is trying to do, is to get their attention and make them aware that you might have something that's a channel for their already existing desires. So Todd actually ran through a to-do list that's for today, that's the things that we hope to do. But I'm gonna do this a little bit again. So I'm gonna give you the 6 templates that we talked about. And you're going to know, I hope, by the end of the day, how to decide which ones you want to use and when you're going to use them, and with whom and what products. I'm going to talk about something that is the single biggest mistake in bad sales copy, plus how to fix it. I'm going to show you a 3-step process. It's very easy. That has made hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars worth of sales happen. And it's how you can get ideas, the big ideas that you use to sell. Hopefully we're going to write some copy, and we're going to try and simplify the whole process. So let's talk about the single big mistake that people make in copywriting. I'm tempted to explain every one of these cartoons that I stuck in there. I love Gary Larson. I miss him. All right. So here is a promotion. This is from years ago. I owe a credit on this to Lawrence Bernstein for his info marketing blog, because this was on his blog. Really good example comparison. So here's another piece of copy. I'll just read some stuff to you. You just listen. And then we'll talk about it. At the top, better vision revolution. Then it says underneath that, critical report for those with weak, failing eyesight and age-related eye problems. Then it says, your eyes are the windows to the world. With this astonishing European breakthrough, you can have eyes like a lynx. And then in parentheses, whose keen eyesight and day vision surpass that of an eagle. Then under that, can you think of anything more devastating than going blind? I'll jump underneath. Thousands of grateful customers swear by it. And then, are you ready to beat the poor vision bullet? And then it goes on. Okay. Good or bad? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Who's got thumbs up? Thumbs down. No thumbs. Many people with no thumbs. That's so sad. Who was the thumbs up? Okay, who was a thumbs down? Kitchen sink, I think it was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen to all this stuff in here. This thing about the links. Who here is going, I'm ashamed to say I don't know what a lynx is? Okay, it's a small, weird little cat that lives in the forest that has no tail and can have, like a bobcat, can have pointy tufts on its ears. So The person introduced with this astonishing breakthrough, you can have eyes like a lynx. Okay, pause sales pitch to go look up lynx in the encyclopedia, read a little bit about lynx, or if you're going on Google, then you read about lynx, and then you start reading about bobcats, and then you read about bobcats, and you think about cougars. What are all the names for cougars in the United States? Oh boy, what are some of the other big cats? What cheetahs? They can't pull their claws in. That's amazing. Oh, all these animals. Eagles have eyesight. Do eagles versus lynx? Who has better eyesight? I mean, whoa. They actually have to teach you in the headline about the eagles and lynx. Lost opportunity. Your eyes are the windows to the world. What does that mean? For real. Okay, are you ready to beat the poor vision bullet? What does that mean? Are people getting shot in the eyes? Yes, that impedes your vision. It does. Okay, too much. Okay, this one is Gene Schwartz's. Your eyes can heal themselves. And this, I think I've been hit by the poor vision bullet because I can't read the type that's underneath either. But it's basically about, this was a very popular thing in the 70s, these eye exercises, I think, Bates eye exercises, they supposedly restore your vision. I think that's what this one was about. What's this about? Your eyes can heal themselves, okay? We don't know exactly what it is, but didn't we just open up that information gap? Don't we feel like we want to know? And if I am somebody, I have contact lenses and I see a lot of glasses in here. Aren't you curious? I'm curious. More curious about that than I am about lynx's eyeballs. Okay, here's another one. Never worry about your eyesight again, guaranteed. This is another one, more recent promotion. What's that about? Doctors, remarkable new natural solution means you'll never worry about your eyesight again, guaranteed. And then imagine no fear of failing eye health. Again, goes on. I'm not reading the leads to these things because that would be tedious, but again, is there any lack of clarity there, any misunderstanding of what that's about? Okay, this is probably the single biggest mistake that you see people make in copy. That they don't have one singular compelling idea. And I know that that sounds like a head-smacking obvious thing to say. And maybe even some of you are out here saying, this is really kind of 101 basic stuff. But the thing is that this is what it comes down to, and with copywriters all the time. You'll see copy that comes in, and copy that comes in even from people who have been doing it for a long time, myself included, who get all excited about something, and they haven't pared the idea down to that one thing that's the most compelling, clear type of thing. When you're writing, anybody who's actually doing the copywriting knows that in your mind, it's that mess. I remember hearing that lynxes have really great eyesight. I remember hearing that, I don't know what, I still don't know who hears about windows to the world, eyeballs, but that kind of thing. So it's your job as the writer or as the business owner to make sure that that clarity is what is at the top of every promotion. And if you don't do that, everything else that we talk about today will be wasted. So you need to have a checklist thing going on throughout this. This is the idea of the power of one, meaning the power of one great, strong, big idea that can anchor the pitch and is clearly expressed. When I say anchor the pitch, one of those terms that we came up when I talked about that 200 secret lists that we had was the idea of the golden thread. Again, another kind of simple but very important secret that when you have this lead, when you have the headline and then you have the lead, that part that gets the people to go and say, tell me more, what you tell them has to be about that thing that you're telling them. How many people had the experience being at a party or something and they start telling a story, and then in the story they remember there's like another thing where the story can go, and then they start adding that in, and then it goes off on a tangent. They're like, wait, where was I? And then another time they tell that same story. I've done it, oh my God, if everybody who has known me for more than like 6 months says, "Oh my God, you're telling the John Ford story." Because I do that all the time. And then there are other times I'll tell the same story, but I will be more on point or something like that, and I'll deliver it, and it will work great. And usually it's because it sticks to that golden thread. It sticks to that thing that you put out front, and it's like you wrap the thread around it, and you pull it taut all the way through, right through to the close. So you can only do that if you have an idea that's strong enough to carry for some of these promotions that are going on for 16, 24, 40-something pages, or a VSL that's going to go for an hour. The End of America VSL was an hour and 20 minutes. And is the most successful, still the most successful VSL by far in the industry that I work in the financial publishing industry. They tried to cut it down. They removed like 35 minutes of it. And it cut the performance almost in half. That's incredible that somebody was able to keep that taut all the way through. But that's because they did not go off the path. So it's really what you're asking is, when you sit down to create the promotional campaign for something, probably, like I'm working on something right now. I'm working on the core promotion, but it's going to have a lot of these warm-up emails that are going to come out. And there's going to be a landing page where people sign up to go to a webinar, and then we're going to work to do the editorial that's going to be talking about it, and then some of the upsell copy on the other side. What happens is you work that out in the main promotion, and then you proliferate that out to everything else. So when you're talking about that landing page and where the theme is, yeah, that idea is the thread that runs through everything. So I know the punchline, I know the idea that's at the core, and I make sure it's in everything else. Is that okay? Okay, so but that creates a problem. When I say, what's the big idea? What is the big idea? What do you guys think the big idea is? What's a big idea? Who can define it? Okay, something emotionally stimulating and intellectually compelling. Anything else? Any other? Yeah. Okay. Something coming in a unique way? Okay, something truly different or new. I'm only doing this because I have a hard time editing myself, and also because there's a light bulb up there, and it reminds me. I went to this after college. I had no idea what I wanted to do, so of course I went back to school, and I went to this totally useless graduate program called St. John's College in Annapolis. Absolutely one of my most favorite educational experiences, except maybe like getting praised for making clay animals in kindergarten. This school was studying the great books and philosophy. And what we did was just sit around and have the great conversation, and we'd ask a lot of questions about an idea until we could figure out the nature of an idea. And I didn't realize at the time that I was training to be a copywriter, but there's a joke about St. John's students. So you say, how many St. John's students does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is, what do you mean by change? Okay, that's absolutely, and see, there's a guy going off the path. Okay, let's talk about what a big idea is. Just another couple quick examples. When Mark and I were trying to figure out the best way to teach people copy, he had seen this article about Sylvester Stallone, and Stallone said that the ideal movie script would like have one line of dialogue or something. And Mark said, what if we just get promotions up and we just hold them up in front of the crowd for like 8 hours and we say nothing? Just good promotions, they look at them, and by the time they're done, by osmosis, they know. So what is this promotion? What is this about? What's the big idea here? Retire overseas, enjoy a $1 million retirement on $600 a month. Is that hard to get? It's not. Is it appealing to people? Certainly people who want to retire and people who want to go overseas. Okay, here's another one. This was the most successful promotion before End of America, Plague of the Black Debt, by a guy named Lee Euler, lives here in Florida. How to Survive the Coming Depression. This came out at a time when we were really, really worried about a national debt that was like $2 trillion. I understand that we've solved that problem now, and I'm really glad. Okay. End of America, another big one. Pretty clear, pretty big idea, engaging, want us to go in. So what is it that's making those things work? All right, one of the things that you guys said that makes an idea, a big idea, is that it targets emotions, that it has some emotional aspect to it. Now, why is it that emotions, I know we all already know that emotions are better than reason when it comes to advertising. Why is that? All you have to do is think about when you are engaging with anybody. A lot of this stuff, by the way, is about figuring out how to make your business communications, your advertising, be more like what people experience in real life. When you are talking to somebody who's married, okay, I'm married. If my wife is upset about something and I don't respond with an equal amount of upsetment about what she is upset about, how is that received? Not too well. I mean, she can be really mad, and I would say, that's interesting. She'd be like, hey, what the what? She wants me to be as emotional as she is, and she wants my emotion to match her emotion. If she's excited about something and she tells me it's about something that's exciting, and I go, that's interesting. Okay, same problem. Different emotion, same problem. People want to connect. When they have an emotion, they are seeking a connection to another person who has that emotion, that they can share that emotion. They want that Me Too feeling, which used to mean something else before. They want to say, I know where you are. I feel your pain. That connects with people. That's why big ideas have to target emotions. You have to have something that shows people you understand how they feel, not just how they think, but how they feel. So, let's see where I go. That's the next one? Yeah, that's the next one. All right. They also have, I'll get both of you guys. They also have to have an instant appeal. They don't need to be something that you need to work your way through. They don't have to be, they can't be the kind of thing where you have to look up what a lynx is and whether its eyesight is better than an eagle's. You have to know it right away. It's got to be head-smacking obvious. This is in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink. This is the idea. This is like a pre-thought. If I have to spend any time at all unpacking what you're doing, that is a loss of momentum, which this often happens too. When you look at copy, somebody will have like a multi-layered thing. Well, if I set this up, then I can set that up, and then I can set up this thing that is my headline, and that works. But that doesn't work because people don't have the time to go through those steps. It's not that they're dumb. Some of them may be very smart, but for most people, they have a barrage of things coming at them, and they don't want to try and unpack your ideas for you. So it has to have an immediate appeal, immediate understanding. Read this or go broke. What's going to happen if I don't read that? I'm going to go broke. Right. You had a question. Right. Okay, let me come back to that. Is the other question similar to that one? All right. The big idea is what the lead is built upon. So the big idea is inside that lead. But the big idea is you trying to find so that retire overseas example that we saw, or read this or go broke. the the headline, "Read This or Go Broke," is based on somebody figuring out that there is some imminent threat that people haven't heard about. And this one's in the stock market. I don't remember what this was because this was back in the 90s. But that person is, I think this was, I'm trying to remember his name, Nick somebody who wrote this. Anyway, has figured out what it is that's going on in the stock market that has this urgency that he's going to develop in the rest of what is the actual lead. I mean, we're just doing the headlines here for expediency, but the big idea is what informs him what to write into the headline and into the lead. Okay. Tale of two men walking, one lives diverged. Kind of. The big idea, okay, that's a better example. It's easier to unpack. The big idea there is that one little thing can make a big difference in the course of two similar lives, otherwise similar lives. Two similar men go down paths. One man's life is okay. It's modestly successful. The other one is a great success. What's the difference? One tool, which happens to be the Wall Street Journal. The big idea is about the one tool. Somebody says, how can we put that idea into a lead? Why don't we tell the story of two guys going down that path? And that's how that becomes a promotion. Make sense? Okay. I think it'll make more sense too as we go through. Yes. So let's move on. You look at everything. You look at everything. This is, if you ask yourself the question again about when you're in a relationship or when you're meeting friends, and you're trying to figure out who they are and connect with them, how do you know that they? Do you mean how I can read off face to face? I can read off their facial expressions. Is that what you mean? I think that again, it's going to boil down to figuring out that personal relationship. You would have to have a good understanding of what it's like to talk one-on-one with somebody who's a cancer patient and see them nodding as you're saying something, see them feeling a relief, a sense of relief wash over their face, and you read that off of them. We do that off of reading marketing reports in the after effect, but while you're creating this stuff, you have to go into that informed with as much of that kind of experience, that one-on-one experience, so that now you know, every time I said that, that made the cancer patient feel better. I think you just have to listen to a lot more of those tracks until you feel it. If you're writing an ad and you can't feel excited about yourself, this is like character acting for an actor, somebody who goes and they just try and live that life and become that person because they want to feel what it's like to do that to inform what they do. Well, the copywriting experience or even the business building experience is a lot the same thing. A lot of the times you find in these businesses that the most successful ones come out of people who try to solve the same problem, so they understand it personally. Somebody who is writing copy is trying to understand the same problem. And I had somebody tell me one time how uncanny it was that when they would meet people who would come into a business on a certain copywriter's copy, those customers would almost have a personality profile that's very similar to the copywriters. And it's not accidental. It is an interpersonal connection. So really, if you are able to write about it well, write about it genuinely, it's because you truly understand how that person feels. Copywriting a lot of it is about empathy. I get that. I feel your pains, like we said before. Okay? Big ideas are original. Uh, okay, go ahead. I, th- I think that that's going to be a subjective answer. We're going to have to do that based on what kind of thing it is that you're selling and what that actual message is. There isn't a rule. Positive always works, negative always works. People might tell you one works better than the other. And there are scientific studies that somebody will say, but I've heard them, it's like whether eggs are bad for you or good for you in the morning. You know, do any of us know? I know I only read the ones that say eggs are good for me because I like eggs. But you can't really tell. Uh, Fear-based promotions work in some environments with some audiences and with some products, and the same goes on the positive side. No rules. Well, it depends on, that is also kind of subjective too, but there, I guess you could say the pattern interrupt where you're trying to get people to see something different happening is usually going to be somewhere up in the beginning. Headline or somewhere buried in the lead. So, all right, for instance, big ideas are original. The idea, the pattern interrupt is part of what makes something feel original. That's what differentiates it. It's like you go into a room and you just take one of the chairs there and you put it sideways on the floor. And people are like, what's going on there? That's your pattern interrupt. Here, this is a thing outlawed for 41 years, now legal again. Okay, the investment launched the largest family fortune the world has ever seen, could return 665% in the next 12 months. Then it goes through and it talks about the Rothschilds and their wealth. Okay, so in there, what things are interrupting the pattern? Something that has been outlawed for 41 years that's a little jarring. What are you talking about? That something was outlawed, that it's so specific, 41 years, that kind of sets me off. And then that it opens, instead of talking about this great investment and telling me that I could take it and make 665%, it starts talking about this wealthy family that lived a couple of centuries ago. Okay, that interrupts the pattern. But this was talking about something to do with gold coins. How many gold coin promotions have been written and put out? Countless. Have any of them talked about the Rothschild family? Not that I know of. Maybe they did, but if they did, they didn't get put out there very well. Right. So the most cliched example is somebody would say, sex, now that I've got your attention. Yeah, I mean, that is like quintessential idiotic copywriting. There is no idea in that sex, now I've got your attention. There's nothing new and original about it. But if the idea itself is strong and different enough. Yeah, which is the problem. Which is the problem with relying on gimmicks to make something, to make something, to get attention. If the gimmick doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing, then chances are it's not going to be sustaining enough. You have to. You could do that. You could get away. You know, the very first End of America thing just had a warning. This is not may not be suitable for all audiences and may offend some people. That was a gimmick kind of opening. That's like back when they used to put promotions in what looked like an airmail envelope or a FedEx envelope. But once they get past that, if you don't immediately go into something that's a solid, sustaining idea, then it's wasted time. You know what? I promise you we'll get to that. It's part of that three-step process of coming up with ideas. Okay. So big ideas are often timely, so they've got to hit the market at the right time. This one is about the subprime time bomb that was ticking under Wall Street. Went on to talk about how the Wall Street was going to crash. This came out in late 2006, and worked fine. Probably would have worked better if we weren't so scared of the market that we'd waited till 2007 to put it out. But if we had put it out in 2008 or 2009, would it have worked? No, because everybody already knew about it. Okay. And if we had put it out in 2003, 2004, when everybody thought that real estate never crashes, it wouldn't work then either. Okay, so they have to land at the right time. You just flashed a coffee signal, but how much time? In 10 minutes, okay. Big ideas have momentum. So one of the things that Gene Schwartz talked about in his book about desire is that there is a tide of mass desire. So you definitely want to go out and hit what people care about, what they want to know more about, but you're even better off if you can do it at a time when everybody is feeling the same way. Everybody's moving in the same direction. I think that that's a pretty clear idea, but if you haven't read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, which came out a long time ago, but is really worth reading, he basically is talking about how you are riding on the top of it's like body surfing. You got to get in exactly the right time to ride on that wave. So the only way you can do that, and a lot of these things, is just being so hugely informed in what's going on in that market. Somebody asked something about naive new copywriters wanting to test things. They asked Joe Schriefer if they let new copywriters test things that they had already tried. And I guess I forgot why I just started to say that. It's usually the cure for that, and I was kind of hoping that Joe would say, and he kind of did, is just information. Just show, well, he did say, show them the numbers, show them the promotion. They say they come up with an idea that we've done before, have a good library and show it to them and say, that sounds like a good idea. That's what we thought when we did this one. Take a look. Anyway, a lot of answers to the questions of how do you know what that is simply just being totally immersed and seeing what's out there. Big ideas have depth. How many of you guys have read this astounding classic, How to Outsourcing Business for Profit Explained? How many have that thing practically memorized? Nobody. How about the 4-hour work week? Have you heard of that? It's the same idea. This comes from Todd's book about big ideas. This is the same idea. The same thing is happening here in the 4-hour work week. He is basically telling you to outsource your life. But he did a much better job of it than that other poor guy, Lama Jabber, or whoever it was. Okay, so depth. He's finding a way to add some profundity to that. He's finding a way to make people feel like, hey, there's a kind of a rich thing here. And when you start digging into stuff, you know, David Ogilvy said that the single most important characteristic for a copywriter was, does anybody know? Curiosity. Is that the best copywriters are people who are hopelessly curious. You can dig in. If somebody said to somebody, you said to somebody at a party, it's like, I'm really into outsourcing these days. That would probably not get a lot of attention from a lot of people. But when you start to talk to somebody about anything, you can usually find something that's fascinating about it, some aspect of it, some way to dimensionalize it and make it rich and interesting. And almost everything has those dimensions that are unexplored because when it presents itself, it's a little bit boring. But if you can find that aspect, so that's what it means when it's depth. You're looking for that way to dimensionalize it, making it interesting. And big ideas can be tightly expressed. So a lot of those examples that we saw have an idea that you can say just in a few words. This is like the elevator pitch or that thing where, how many people saw the movie The Player? Robert Altman movie. That's a great movie. You should see that movie if you haven't seen it. But it opens up with one of the longest straight shots, uninterrupted shots, that's ever been in a movie. And it pans around this Hollywood studio lot past the windows of these agents who are being pitched, or these executives are being pitched movie ideas by people who only have about 30 seconds of the agent's attention. So I think like you pass one and they're like, it's like The Graduate, but Mrs. Robinson is, I don't know, I forget that, so I was like, yeah, it's like The Graduate meets Pretty Woman. Now, I don't know what that movie is, but they're trying to say, here's an idea real fast. You know what this one is, you know what that is, let's pair it together, and to the executive, he knows right away what it means. Here, when doctors feel rotten, this is what they do. There's no lack of clarity there. It's instant appeal, but it's part of the reason it's got the instant appeal is because you can express it very quickly. Read This or Go Broke, The End of America. The idea at the top, the lead, and then what you deliver on below, it's got to be something that can be summed up really fast so the person can carry it around and think about it. I think, for the most part, when you do these lists, and even when you do the list that you'll see of the 6 lead types and all those other things, for the most part, you might not get all of them. Here, I wouldn't say that you have to slavishly have, like, if I don't have the 6, I don't have an idea. But a big idea is going to have most, if not all, of these aspects. And actually, if you read Todd's book, which I think, guys mind if I jump for this? Do you want this slide up for a second? Okay. If you read Todd's book, what I think, and Todd can confirm this or not, what he actually has, he has a list of 10 or 11 aspects of a big idea. And these are actually in there. I had written these down years ago in a Copywriters Roundtable article, and then I was reading Todd's book, and I was like, hey, this is my list, but it's not my list. It's the list of what makes big ideas work, because people who have looked at it notice that this is what they do, and he adds more, which I think also work in the aspects of stuff that you got from Mark. But you should take a look at Todd's book, because it has a good discussion of each of these same items. In fact, the 4-hour work week one and outsourcing thing, that is Todd's. I think I mentioned that. Okay, so do you remember the example that was up? The 4-hour work week plus the outsourcing? Okay, outsourcing sounds like a kind of a dry, unexplorable topic. Right. The 4-hour work week, now I want to know, first of all, I've never heard anybody use that term about a 4-hour work week, but it engages me because I think I wouldn't mind only working 4 hours a week. You start to feel like there's something else. There's a richness to it. You feel like there's a backstory. Okay. Can I switch this away? Let's see. Yeah. Do we have time to squeeze this part in? I think there's a natural break after I talk about this, so all right. Okay, so how do you get those bigger ideas? How do you get a big idea? It's difficult. It's difficult. One of the things is research. Another thing is, I have some slides up that are after this, but research. Another thing is just the pure value of chaos, of people colliding, walking around. I mean, I was just saying to Damien that I was in Rich Sheffron's thing. That great presentation he did about AI and all that other stuff was really terrific. I saw stuff in there that I would not have seen if I hadn't gone to the thing yesterday, that I'm going to use in a promotion that I'm working on that happens to be only a little bit loosely related, but some of those slides you had up there are perfect for what I want to say. And I also think that I can write a promotion for one of our technology letters based on the great resets of history. The 4 great resets. I think I actually counted that AI would be the 5th. So the 5th great reset. I'm thinking that I might just have a big reset button as the graphic. I don't know how it's going to work. Anyway, you're crossing paths with people and you have ideas. Okay, so that's another way to do it. This, though, I think is probably the most important part about how to get ideas. Who's that guy? That's us. That's the guy who's had that feeling. So like you got your head on the pillow, you're exhausted, it's been a long day, you put your head down, then all of a sudden you're going, oh my God, that doctor's appointment on Thursday, I really hope this cough isn't anything serious. I really hope it isn't. Because, oh my God, somebody so-and-so didn't think they had a serious cough and pushing up daisies now. Or, oh, I hope that thing at work goes well. Or, oh my God, my wife is there on the other pillow and we haven't been intimate for, 2 weeks or something. Am I fat? I don't know. You're going through these stupid ideas and they all come right at exactly the moment when you're perfectly equipped to deal with them, right? You're in a t-shirt and boxer shorts or something like that. That's when you're going to spring out of bed and do something, right? Or the other way around. You're really so excited about something, you want to go get started on it now. You want to go look it up. You think it's going to work out really well. Okay, that's where everything starts. Doesn't matter what you sell, because your customer is that guy who has that on his mind, or has it on her mind, to such a degree that they are primed for your message. So that's where you start. I used to, when I got over to Paris, I used to use a friend's office because we had a smaller apartment and then soon had a young baby in the smaller apartment. Couldn't work at home, really. So I used space at this friend's office, and she said, in exchange, you don't have to pay rent or anything for it, but would you sit in on our marketing meetings and just help us generate some ideas? And I said, yeah, sure. And she would come in, and they would get out their spreadsheets and everything, and she'd say, so these are expenses that we have to meet this month, and this is how much we have to make, and how much should we charge for this item because this is how much we have to make. And then they'd go on and talk about the spreadsheet, whatever, for 10, 15 minutes. And then she'd say, well, what do you think? And I said, I think you just wasted about 15 minutes. Because what about the person that you're selling stuff to? What do they want to buy? If you don't figure that out, you're not going to answer any of these other questions. So that is where you start. You start with that guy. Okay? How many of you guys are on Agora Financial's copy calls on Tuesday? All right, so you heard Todd talk about the web analysis, right? So that was what was the E, Todd, in web analysis? Emotions and beliefs, right? Wants, emotions, okay. This is, I think, kind of another way to look at the same thing. Okay, so you're looking at these guys, you have to ask yourself, one of the things you have to ask yourself is, what do they believe? What do they already believe? Who here goes online and finds themselves wasting time trying to save the world in internet forums? Because I know I do. I had a membership in Discus. That's like a thing that you sign up for lots of different forums. I was wasting so much effing time on forums trying to teach some schlub what was wrong with the world, with his world, or what problem he was creating in it, that I actually went to the change your password page on Discus and put the thing in the type in your new password, and then I closed my eyes and went like this and then hit return so that I could never log into Discus again. It's a waste of time to try and take somebody's beliefs and turn them into some other beliefs. This is what Eugene Schwartz was saying at the beginning. We are channeling a desire. We are not creating it. Okay? You've got to go to understand what they believe, and you've got to speak within that context. You cannot convince them of something else. So you have to ask yourself, what do they believe? All right. What do they desire? What are their wants and needs? Specifically, especially, what are their wants? Because we're not always so wise about what we actually need. Do we all need the new iPhone? Probably not. Do we want it? I do. I mean, I think you all have this experience in your own lives. So what do they want and need? Because if you're not going to talk about the thing that they want, then they are not going to be that interested in what you have to offer. Okay? And identifications, this is a big one. How your prospect craves to be or feel. So who here hasn't seen a before and after picture in an ad, especially in the health ads? Some of you guys have health stuff. Why do before and after pictures work? Because we look at it and go, that's me in the before one. That's what I want to feel like or look like in the after. That's what that is. So you think about identifications. How does your prospect think of themselves? Because if you don't treat them like the way that they secretly feel inside about themselves, sometimes they're not self-aware of this, how they identify themselves. So they haven't sat down to figure out the time, who am I? But if you don't speak to them in a way that fits with their own image of who they are, then they're not going to feel like you understand them. And you have to also offer them something to be. That's why when you have a protagonist that's in a promotion, if you have somebody who is the business owner who has succeeded or the testimonial that's really worked out, they're looking at that person saying, I want to be that person. That's the identification. Well, I think that the political, right now, the heated political environment we're in is actually a pretty good example. So if you want to figure it out, you just go into a forum, find somebody who doesn't believe what you believe, and try and change their mind. You're not going to be able to do that. But say you go in, for instance, right now, I'm hearing from all these Facebook connections from people I went to high school with. I haven't seen them for decades. And we don't share the same beliefs. But they were friends in high school. There's no reason they can't be friends now. Well, because I have a connection with them, I speak to them differently than I would with some guy that I have no idea who he is, who feels entitled to hurl insults and things like that at me, or make judgments about me. We tend to channel those people that we want to help have agree with us by understanding a little bit about what they say. It's like, well, you have a good point there. And you repeat that back to them. Oh, yeah, I can kind of see that. And then you might say to them, what if, though, we injected this situation or that situation? So you're just kind of easing them through it. That would be channeling somebody toward, I guess, a belief that's a little bit different from what they have. You know, you can do that in editorial. You can do that in a relationship that you've had ongoing for a long time. I think that when you're going out to market something, you don't want to be out there trying to look for the people whose minds you're going to change, because you don't have that relationship with them. You don't have that luxury to go and work those angles. They don't trust you enough yet to care about you before caring about what it is that you're saying. Let's move. We have one more question, and we're going to take a break, and we can talk on the break. All right. Okay. All right. All right, maybe this be the last. I think this might be a good slide after this slide. Okay. E-motivations, that's a little bit of a corny term that I just stuck up there when I was typing it. But the reason I did is because when people have motivations, they might think that they have reasons, rational reasons, and the easy things to grab about why they do things. So why somebody might be motivated to start a business, build a nest egg, be famous, lose weight, take vitamins, etc. Those are the superficial things. We could say, what do you want to do? I want to start a business. Then you start peeling back the onion. Why do you really want to start the business? What's your motivation for starting a business? If I put out a promotion based on these, I'm probably going to put out how to start a business, which vitamins to take, how to lose weight. You might get appeal from some people. You might get someone who's really ready to go on that kind of thing, but you're unlikely to get a kind of a viral message that's going to grab people. But there are real things beneath those secondary motivations. So starting a business might be somebody who wants to take control over their own life. You think of that motivational speech that Todd gave at the end of yesterday. That is about somebody seizing an opportunity because It's there for them to seize, not anybody to give it to you, not anybody to I don't know, coddle you through it or let you ride their coattails. You have to do it. There are people out there who feel the same way, who want to have ownership of their lives. That's why they start a business. So your promotion is going to talk to that emotion rather than just talking about that superficial thing. Building a nest egg might be about somebody being afraid that they're not going to have enough money to live another 20 years after they retire, or that their spouse won't have enough money when they're gone. Why do people want to be famous? You know, when you ask children, Ricky Gervais went and he was asking kids what they wanted to be when they grew up. You know, and they used to be firemen or God forbid, president. Now they just want to be famous. I want to be famous. What does that mean? Of course we know it's pointless, but what is that impulse to be famous? People want to be respected and they want to be loved. They want acceptance. Okay, so all these things that are under here, they're just guesses, better guesses at the emotional motivation that you would get at when you start studying and talking to people. And you're asking about those cancer patients, how you understand that you're connecting with them. When you start hearing those tapes and you start meeting with those people, you start figuring out what it is, what are they really, with cancer patients, what are they really scared of? It's simple to say they're probably scared of dying. Then you talk to them for a while and you find out they might be scared of pain. They might be vain and scared of losing their hair. They might be afraid for their family members, that their family members can't handle the grief that's coming. They might be afraid of not having a belief system that they feel like they should reconnect with, or anything, or understanding their disease. But you can only get to that by digging and talking and finding out, being empathetic, getting inside that person's skin and figuring out where they are. But those are those motivations. Those are the things that when we get to the leads, those are the things that are going to make them work. Oh, all right, I got to do this one before we break. Okay, I promise you guys a 3-step method for getting an idea. It is really simple. This comes from Mike Palmer, amazing copywriter, guy who mostly wrote The End of America, depending on who you talk to. If you ask Mike, he said there were a lot of inputs. If you ask Porter, he said Mike did it on his own. But anyway, this is what he says that they do at the Stansberry Publishing Group, who of course has had a lot of success. They start with that guy on the pillow with his eyes wide open. What's keeping him up at night? What does he care about? They're not talking about the product. They're not saying, what am I selling? How much of it do I have to sell? Et cetera. How much does it cost? That comes later. They're talking about the guy who's got something that he really cares about. Then you say, what's the hottest selling solution for that? What does everybody else sell into that guy? What else is he buying? What does he care about? I'm going down and looking at the bestseller list on the wall or now on Amazon. What do I hear people talking about? What are they responding to? I probably want to do something that's in tune with that. But I can't stop there, because if I'm just in tune with it, I'm just going to be another voice in the chorus. What's the story that nobody else is telling? So that's when you go, now what's the twist? How can I find a way to retell that story? So that outlawed for 41 years, now legal again, came out at a time when lots of people were interested in buying gold and gold coins. And he said, what's that person worried about? They're worried about the fate of the dollar and things that are not based in hard assets. Okay, so I'm going to sell something that has to do with hard assets. What is everybody else selling? They're all selling gold coins. That's a new thing where you get not just the value of the gold, but maybe some kind of added value to the fact that the coin might be from a different place or different time in history. Maybe adds a value to it. But if I go out with another gold coin promo, I'm going to sound like everybody else. So what's the twist? That's where it gets outlawed for 41 years. Okay, so if you sit down and you're trying to figure out your ideas for any business, this will work for you. It will put stuff on the table that you can work with. It will give you a big idea. It might not give you the headline right away, or it might. but it will at least give you that clay that you can work with. All right, why don't we skip these? I'm just going to put all three of these were income promotions. You saw the other one earlier. That was about collecting dividend checks from MLPs, master limited partnerships that usually do oil pipelines. That one was about a DRIP thing where you reinvest your dividends. And that one, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was another income promotion. 3 different ways into the same idea. So little twists on the same idea. There is recommendation for Todd's book, which I think you said you can get on Kindle, or that Russian website that Pirates Books. Technique for producing ideas is like 60 pages. You can fit it in your pocket. You can read it in half an hour. It's by a guy who worked at an ad agency. It's just basically about the brainstorming process. And it's worth reading just because it's so short, but basically what it says is fill your brain up with as much as you can from as many different resources as you can. Go for a walk, take a shower, go back and start talking about with people who aren't going to shoot down every idea in the beginning. Okay, so that's basically what it says. But it's much more inspirational than that. These, if you like reading more deeply, don't get into consumer mode where you get lost into reading too many books without, like, if you can't just read books about ideas and then hope to have ideas. You gotta. But I do think the psychology of it is fascinating. These are 2 great ones. Stephen Johnson's Where Good Ideas Come From, and Creativity Inc., which is about Pixar and how Pixar comes up with ideas. You heard Clayton talk about how to tell stories and things like that. A lot of great stuff in both of those, very fascinating reads. All right, let's take a coffee break, and then I promise you'll actually hear some lead types when we come back. Thank you. Yeah, there are a couple of times there where I was thinking, I ought to stop the questions for just a second. But don't stop them coming because I actually like them. But so somebody was just asking in the break, was saying that they have a promotion. Where'd he go? Who was I just talking to? And I said I was going to talk about it. He might have ran out of the room. Oh, right here. Yeah, so you were saying that you work with some people, you have a headline that you feel a lead that works for you really well. It's just kind of a direct promise, and that it's kind of flat and dry. That it works, but you feel like doesn't have a lot to it. Okay. Okay, the big idea doesn't feel so big. Right. Okay. We will, I promised him we will talk about that when we get to the lead types. But it relates back to something that Todd was talking about yesterday about awareness levels. And what I really liked about what Todd was saying yesterday is that I've been talking about this Gene Schwartz awareness thing myself, and it's part of the Great Leads book. Kind of key to how we figured out what lead types to use. But I hadn't heard it put the way that Todd did yesterday in that pyramid shape, which I thought was really good, where he was saying that you've got a lot of awareness you've got lots and lots of awareness at the top. We'll unpack this a little bit in a second, and very little awareness at the bottom, but at the bottom is a bigger base because there are a lot more people out there who don't know than do know. And you'll see in a second that you're going to pitch one way to people that are very aware. Certain types of leads work for people that are very aware, and certain types of leads are going to work for people that are unaware. And Todd had said yesterday that the ones that you pitch to the unaware tend to work for people up the scale, but not the other way around. That's largely true. Largely true. Although I would say there's a nuance I'd like to add to that. Let's put it that way. Okay, so these were the awareness levels that you guys heard yesterday, or that you've read about if you read Gene Schwartz's Breakthrough Advertising. And we don't need to walk through each one of them over again. But the basic idea is that the most aware people pretty much know everything about you, about the product, about themselves and what they want. They are part of your posse. They trust you. They just want to know what you've got. Okay? And then you go all the way to the other extreme. Those people don't know who you are or whether they should trust you. They don't know maybe that there is a product that exists that solves a problem that they have. They may not even know what the problem exactly what it is. It's like the person who gets migraines and has tried every other solution, but they have no idea that it's actually a back problem or something like that. Okay, completely unaware people, or that person, the back person would be in the middle somewhere. But what you mainly want to remember about these people, at least for our perspective here, is that you talk to people differently depending on their awareness levels. Now, for Todd's thing, the nuance that he added yesterday, which I think is important, is that these people at the bottom, they are the hardest people to sell because you got the most work to do to build trust, to inform them about all those things. But most of the people are here. So really good copywriters can write to here. The regular everyday ones can write to there. That's generally how it breaks out. Okay, so let's move into that a little bit more deeply. And I've just said that about the resistance level. So the people who are more aware, they've got less natural resistance because they've got that knowledge. They already know that you're probably on the up and up. They probably know who you are, and they have reason to trust you. The ones on the other side, not so much. So I like to keep bringing this thing back to that just regular everyday relations between people metaphor. If you imagine you're going into a party situation or a social situation, and you're going up to talk to people. You see somebody that you know, that you met at MFA Live, you got something in common on one side of the room, and you see people you don't know on the other side of the room. Now, most of us are Americans. We're pretty friendly. We just go and talk to everybody like we've known them all our lives. Backslapping, that's what the French people feel about us in France. So for years of trying to learn how to be French and standoffish, I realized I couldn't do it. So I just go around being the goofy guy who slaps people on the back, and they actually seem to like it because it's refreshing and different for them. But you go into a cocktail party, you're going to talk to somebody who you know. If you walk up to them and you say, "Hey, hi, I'm John. I work in copywriting, and I've been doing that for like 30 years, and we live over in France and stuff." And my friend is going to say, "Jesus Christ, John, I know that. Why are you telling me that?" They're going to think you're crazy. Why are you doing all this warm-up? You walk up to somebody else, and you start that you don't know at all, and you'd be like, "Hey, how's your wife doing?" And be like, You're kind of creepy, buddy." Okay? So you speak to them differently. You approach them in a different kind of way. So we do that naturally. Well, in promotions, we do that too. You've got to have a different way. So we tend to be more direct when we're talking to somebody that we know, and less direct with somebody that we don't know. And somebody was saying you do more indirect promotions. Or you say more direct. Who was it saying that? Somebody around here. Somebody in that area was saying they did more indirect promotions. All right, well, so we when we say direct and indirect, I think a lot of you guys already know this, but I'm just putting it up there in case somebody doesn't. This is generally what it boils down to. If you were to take a promotion and write out the transcript of a VSL, or you had a print letter and you had one long string and you had your headline, the body copy, and the close, generally in a direct promotion, you're going to talk about the product a lot earlier than you are in an indirect promotion. That's generally what it means. I'm going to come at you and say, this is what I got, this is how much it is, this is why you want it, etc. in something that's more direct. And something that's indirect, you got to kind of go through the back door. You got to warm up, you got to build some trust. You got to make somebody feel like this is going to be engaging, and you're going to tell them something new. And you got to take your time, and you might, as Clayton was saying, you might not talk about the price or the premiums or the huge benefit or anything for the first 4 or 5 pages. So you can see why that indirectness is a much harder challenge, because you have to say something engaging without saying the one thing that you feel like you're going to sell to those people. You got to woo them along. It's a bit like a romance. Okay. I just try to throw some ideas up here. Where are these times that you might do this? But we'll look at these more deeply in a second. But so a lifetime, so you're selling something, a lifetime offer, lifetime membership or something like that to a house list. I mean, a list of people that already know who you are. You can afford to be more direct with them because you've already spent all this time winning them over. You've already spent all this time building a relationship. So you can go out there and you can say, listen, you like what we do? How about you keep getting what we do for less than you spend buying it piecemeal and just join us? Or brand and commodity product offers. If something comes out with a little Apple on it, there are some of us who will just buy it. Okay, they just go, you want the new iPhone? What are those commercials? Is there somebody talking for 10 minutes about what the new iPhone does? No, they just hold up an iPhone and make it do one of the cool things that it does. There's no words on it at all. We'll buy it. Okay, freemium or price-driven or something, giving something really good away, you can afford to be direct to a lot of people. Or deadlines and things running out, that's a little bit the same thing. And then on the other side, people don't know you, something is complicated that needs explaining, something that's tied to a big news event, to selling to an audience that's kind of jaded, you might need to win trust again. Basically, what's that saying is when the more trust that you have to win, the more likely it is, the more resistance there are, the more likely it is you're going to be indirect. So when I told you that story about Mark and I sitting down and making those piles of different promo types and the 6 types that we came up with, again, these are not the only types. I'm sure you could come to me with some examples of things you feel don't quite fit in one category or the other, or maybe invent a whole new category. What we're looking for is a way to simplify the work you need to do as you approach trying to sell something or trying to tell somebody else how to sell something who you've hired to sell your business. These are those 6 types. We'll go through each one of them. So I'm not going to read them off to you right now. But on this side, these are ones that tend to be more direct pitches, and these are ones that tend to be less direct pitches, and they tend to be ones that you're going to use for those awareness levels. Okay? So let's go through and talk about the first one. This is for most aware audiences. This is an offer and type invitation lead. And you saw this one earlier. There is an offer of something, a product, right at the top. We know immediately that somebody is coming to us to give something away. This pitch went out to people who weren't necessarily part of a house list. They didn't necessarily know who Laissez-Faire was, but we knew that we only wanted them to sign up for a $49 subscription. And we felt like this book, the big book of free, was such a big, immediate, appealing idea, and we could give it away free to them, that we went right out with the offer right up front. And it worked. Worked just fine. Okay, so here's another one. This one is from the Stansberry guys. Now, I think that this was a $5,000 lifetime subscription for a bunch of products, like a bundle of products. Use my password to access all our best investment ideas for just $9 a month. This goes to people who have been reading, this is Porter Stansberry, is reading Porter's emails every day. These are people who read the End of America promotion and came in on that. These are people, or this might have been before that actually, but people who read his newsletters once a month, read his weekly alerts, who go to the conferences and they stand around and they want to talk to him. Those are the people that have already part of the family. They are ready to hear this. That's very direct offer. Here's another one, century-old uncirculated silver dollars from historic New Orleans. This is to people who are really passionate about buying gold. This wouldn't work now because people are not that passionate about buying gold. But we used to do, there used to be these gold conferences in New Orleans. I don't know if they still do them. The guy who put them on has since passed away. Um, and I remember being at one of these things, and they get like 500-600 people, and somebody was up on the stage and talking about, I don't know what, some esoteric idea. I think they were just filling time. And this guy who was like 85 years old got up, had a, like a walker thing that he pushed to help him get to the stand up. And somebody ran over with a microphone and he went, "Talk about the gold!" Because that's what he cared about. He just wanted to hear about that. That's the guy who responds to this. You're going to those lists, you know that that's what they care about, gold and silver. So here's one. The doors are now open on Money Map project number 2, but they won't be for long. So this is an urgency kind of thing. People want to get on deals. So we know a little bit about them, that there's somebody who want alternative investment angles, and somebody's offering them a chance to get in on this deal. So that's enough that you can lead with it. You can give them an offer, an invitation. Here's something. This is for a product called the Oxford Club, and I think Mark Ford actually wrote this one. It's just an envelope, cream-colored, gold lettering. It looks like you're being invited to the White House for dinner. So that's out for people who what? What are they aware of? The most part of they're aware of is that feeling of I am elite. I want to be part of this elite group, and that's what that plugs into. Okay, so he's asking for the money map one where it said project number 2. Is that the kind of thing that I like the term that Matt was using, the information gap? Yeah. So you hear project number 2. Well, immediately somewhere in your mind is going, what happened to project number 1? And I don't want to be the one that has to line up for project number 3 after I didn't get in on project number 2. Yeah, so that's what that's there. Okay. So what are offer and invitation leads for? They're for a very aware audience, generally. Not always, but generally. Something where the deal is a really good deal. So no-brainer terms, okay? So I see it and I'm like, I know right away I want to get in on that. This is like when you see a market selling a bunch of stuff and people show up and they buy it. Like they're running in and they're having a sale on orthopedic shoes. I don't know, I'm just trying to think of something that not everybody needs. But the orthopedic shoes are only $3. Everybody goes crazy buying orthopedics. Why are you buying orthopedic shoes? Your feet are fine. I don't know, they're only $3. I mean, the deal is just fantastic. A lead generation thing like we did with the Big Book of Free. They got that book for $4.95. If they liked the service that came with it, they didn't have to do anything, and then they got the subscription. Something that's really new or that people have already desired, so that the desire is already so strong you don't actually have to warm them up to the product. They're ready for it. The freebies that are of obvious value. People used to give away calculators and things like that. And, they do things online now. You give a membership in a social network or a software program or something. Velvet rope. That's the idea. That's a little bit like the RSVP thing that we just saw. The velvet rope is that idea. Down in Miami, they have all these clubs. And part of what sells a club is people lined up outside. So if you don't have people lined up outside, what do? You put a velvet rope in front of it and a bouncer who looks like he's not going to let you in if you don't have the right shoes on. And then people go, "Oh, what's in there? I'm not allowed in. I'm curious about that." Okay. Highly compelling guarantees, urgent deadlines. So parts of your offer. So what's happening in those offers and invitations? You're almost always in those, no matter who it is that you're selling to or what it is that you're selling, if it's got the deadline or if it's an audience that you're selling because they're very aware of themselves or very aware of your product, you are putting that offer somewhere up front. You are naming it. So it's not a rule that you can never say that up in the front where you can't divulge that you have a product. But when you do that, you just need to be aware that whatever it is that you're doing is something that people are trusting, aware enough at some level, in some way, that when you say it, they're not going to be put off by the fact that you know they're selling something. Well, this is not a list, I think, like an add up kind of list where you're trying to combine it. This is like many different situations. These are alternatives. So this is not a checklist for everyone. It's like, do I fit into one of those categories or two of those categories or maybe a little bit more? Well, sure. I guess if you have something that's free to give away and you want to do a lead generation pitch, sure. Or you have a really great deal, then you might put all three of those together. If you're going to offer a velvet rope access thing and also a freemium, it kind of runs, this is an exclusive club. And if you come in, you'll get a free flashlight. It kind of, mixes together. Okay, direct promise. Direct promise, and you were the one we were just asking about this direct promise about office space. That is a direct promise. This one and the next one are like if you're students of advertising, if you go on that info marketing blog that I mentioned where they have lots of great old classic ads and you see those things that used to be in newspapers or those kinds, or a lot of Gene Schwartz ads and things like that. Info marketing, and I think it's .com, but if you type in info marketing, all one word, it'll show up. A lot of good old classic stuff. And a lot of those old ads were this. They were direct promises, or the next one that we'll talk about, problems and solutions. That's what people did. That's what advertising used to be. A little more difficult now, but here's an old one. You can now command your body to melt away fat. Okay, there's intrigue there because what that phrase is a little bit curious. But you can now command your body. It's a direct promise. I'm just promising somebody you can command your body to melt away fat. There are definitely other psychological elements that are at work there. I wish I could read the rest of you because I don't want you to think we're just talking about headlines. The leads going on, I'll always elaborate on these headlines, but for three or 400 words. But a direct promise here. Here's another one. Shed fat, pack on muscle, and power up your sex life. So power threes, mentioning things in threes. Power for anti-aging secrets. Okay, so just direct promises. You have a question on the last one? Okay, so power of one. Does this violate the power of one? What is this headline about? Okay, the one, you could make an argument that this violates the power of one because I'm like, well, which one is it? Am I shedding fat? Packing on, is it about getting more muscular or having a better sex life? Although, you also could argue on the other side, a guy could be like, well, if I were slimmer or stronger, I'd probably have a better sex life. Or if I can get a better sex life, I don't really care about any of those other things. It depends on the guy you're talking to. But really, this is about somebody becoming more that idea of confident and masculine. Masculine leading to confidence or confidence, whatever. And all the women are psychoanalyzing us now in the room. Yes, this is how high our elevation goes. This is it. Oop. Okay, that last one, retirement plan B. A couple different things are at work here, but without doing a single moment's work, you can now legally sneak onto the payroll of nearly 1,000 of America's best companies and collect a regular Plan B pension check as often as 15 days. And this could actually go in another category that I'm going to show you later because it invents a term, so it could fit in this secrets category. But the basic idea that this is promising retirement income. So that's a kind of a direct promise. That's all that beginning is about. It spells out how much you can make, how much the checks are. Right. So the question is, why with 30 more pages if it's so good? Because I still need to prove that what's going to be inside is what's inside. What I'm trying to do in the lead is just get the people to that point. Remember, say, okay, tell me more. So I am then telling them more. That book about 127 secrets, like, it's not enough to me to say, I have 127 secrets. The only reason they want to read on is not because they love the number 127, not because they love the concept of people having secrets or that they need a book to fill out their bookshelf, but because they're like, okay, 127 sounds like you might have something. I'm willing to hear more of a conversation. I will talk to you at the over by the punch bowl for another couple minutes to find out what you're about. And that's when you start unfolding more and more of what you've got. Generally, yes. Generally, yes. This is part of that economist in the thing with theory. I can't say it as a rule because certainly, for instance, that big book of free did work to relatively cold audiences. They might be people on the house list, but who were, they definitely worked for the people who knew what laissez-faire was. Worked pretty well for the people that were on the rest of those lists in the Agora area. But it did also work to cold lists outside. And as Todd said yesterday, that's where the numbers are. That's where when you scale up, that's the one that you want to approach. Well, how did that one work if those people were cold? Because they were aware of something else. There's some element of awareness that they have about one of those, ticking through those secrets, or getting something free is enough to get them to that point where they start reading those bullets. And then when you get to those bullets, they're like, that's a problem I have. Or that's a desire I have. That's something I want to do. Okay, so that's the key. Okay. When I put these checklists up there, do you want me to leave them, or do you want me to say that I'll give the slides to Todd and I can just send them to you? I think that's better. Okay. I put them up there because I want you to have them, but I do not like it when people read off slides to me, and I bet you guys don't either. So I don't want to read off the slides for you. The basic idea is that you want to go out there with. I'll explain the one about highly optimistic markets. This direct promises. Only because it allows me to tell a story, and I already revealed to you that I can't resist doing that. I sat down one time with Bill and Mark and some copywriters around a table, and we were trying to have a brainstorming about how to do, what promotions to do, and it was like 1996 or so, maybe 97. And I learned a lot about copywriting first from Bill and then later from Mark. And they were like, they worked so well together because they were like yin and yang. They're just different approaches. And the Bill school would be a lot more storytelling, a lot like big indirect ideas, a lot of coming around and trying to warm up the cold traffic and things like that. And we had all these, we'd been sitting there just kind of insufferably talking about, what if we did a thing about the real internet economy and talked about how the internet was going to destroy, this is something we said in 96, said, this is going to destroy mom and pop retailers, it's going to ruin bookstores and record stores and all this other stuff before any of this stuff had come along. And we did actually write that promotion, and it didn't work. It was a pretty good promotion, but it didn't work. And it talked about innovation, and the reason that we got stirrups and coffee was because of the Ottoman Empire and the Turks and all this. It went all over the place. A lot of fun to write, but it didn't work. And Mark said, look, this is what our competitors are selling. I just want you to read this headline. What does that say? It says, make 292% in 3 weeks. What's this one say? Turn 10,000 into $1 million in a month. What's this one say? Triple your money in 2 days. Every single promotion was out like that. Everything was a direct promise. You could not put a promotion out with that kind of headline on it in 1996 and 97 because the internet boom was going on and on. So highly optimistic markets, they'll respond to promises like that. The question that I was asked in the break about the flat headline, what did you? It was something about office space. What was that headline? Okay, and so what is the dry headline? Okay, how to add 2 to 25 offices while maintaining quality care. You guys are ready to buy already, I can tell. But the people he's selling to, they are aware of, yeah, so the dental offices that are aware they want to expand, but they don't want to do it at the expense of quality, and it's an issue that they are thinking about all the time. So when you say that to them, it's like, I was just asking myself that question last night when I was staring at the ceiling, or whenever they ask that question. So they're very aware of it. So they're responding to that. That's not a highly optimistic market one, but that's a highly aware market. So you go after those people. If you get all those people, then you're going to start needing to be more indirect. You're going to start needing to find a way to talk to dentists that is more of an end around. So they'll give you time to listen to you and give you time that you can build some trust. Okay. All right, the next one, I just jumped past that thing. All you need to say is problem solution. So another, like a classic kind of approach. You put a problem in front of people and then you solve it. I always think of the old Alka-Seltzer commercials where they used to do, I can't believe I ate the whole thing, and the guy's belly used to expand. And then they would drop the plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. That is the, President Trump is emailing us. There's a flood coming. Is there anything we need to worry about? Okay, so here's a sick of getting gouged when gas prices go up. How about a little gas pump revenge? Okay, I'm putting a problem out there. I'm putting a solution out there. Here's another one. Do you make these mistakes in English? An old classic. Of course, the person's going to read it. Is it just going to go through and chastise them for making these mistakes? And the last line is, you idiot? No, it's going to give them a solution for being better at not making those mistakes in English. Got poor circulation? Discover the 1,000-year-old Japanese nutrient. Now, scientifically proven to help you. So what happens in these problem solution things is most often they do this kind of thing. I mean, this you could completely guess. The headline is going to put the problem out there. Then it's going to ask them what to do. I mean, it's going to give them a possible idea of what to do. It's going to give them some hope that there's an answer. Then when you get into the lead, it's going to elaborate on the problem just long enough to say, it's clear, I feel your pain, I know what you're talking about very specifically. And then it's got to prove that it's got a solution. I was talking to somebody about hope, giving hope to customers. And can I relate so she was saying that she does some work with people who have children, somebody in the family who have things like head injuries, autism, things like that are debilitating, and that there are things that they can do that actually make it easier for those people to communicate, to be more mobile, and things, if I understand it right. And that they had a person come in and talk, a marketing guy come in and say, well, what you're selling to people is hope. Now, I see somebody's head nodding, and my head was kind of nodding, and she says, yeah, sure, you're selling them hope. And she said, yeah, but then they were in a situation where there was a parent there who says, you know what, do not sell me hope, because I don't want hope. And we were talking about why maybe that reaction to that situation is that strong. And does that person, the father of this child who needs care, does he really not want hope? No, he probably, this is my guess, based on 30 seconds of research, is that he actually is fine with hope. What he doesn't like is hope unfulfilled. What he doesn't like is a false promise. It's why we hate used car salesmen. Because no matter how beautiful he says that car is, it's still a lemon, right? So when you do this problem solution thing, so the problem, you're just setting it up to make them feel that you understand what the problem is, and then most of the promotion is proof that the solution works. Which is why a lot of those problem solution things are a lot of people who saying a lot of examples of either I was like you and now I'm not, or this person was like you and now they're not. Okay, so I'm just repeating it for everybody. You're saying, am I calling out symptoms or an underlying problem? I'm not sure I understand what it is that you're asking. Well, what do you think? Is it the pain of what they feel or the reason that they have it? What do you guys think? Yeah, it's this goes back to what we were talking about the feelings, the emotions. It doesn't if you start with the reason why you're having it, then you've got a couple layers and you've got to teach them. This is the reason why you're having that thing that you're having. But if you talk about the feeling that they have it, so got poor circulation, I guess there if I don't want to start rewriting the promotion up here, but if there was an even more direct way to say, because poor circulation sounds like a clinical term, doesn't it? So there's probably an even better way, better to say, worried about constant leg cramps or something else. I know if you could find a way to make it even more directly about what they feel day to day before they even go see their doctor. Right. You know, you can, I think that I actually have this, yeah, something like that. I think I have this on another slide or wanted to say it on another one, but I can't remember which one it is, so I'll just say it now. It's a little bit like, think of it like a Google test. What would you Google if you had the problem? I had a constant cough this summer. The constant cough that I had turned out to be something related to reflux, like a silent reflux. I had no idea really what that was. But when I went on to Google it, what did I Google? I Googled stuff. How come I have a chronic cough? And then I went off on pages saying, do you have cancer of the larynx or, all this other stuff? Am I going to die? And I looked sufficiently worried enough that my wife said, go see the doctor, and then, et cetera. It's kind of a gut feeling kind of thing, but if you are spending a long time warming up problem, I don't know how there's not a measure. I can't say it's an exact number of words. You have to show it to somebody else and see if they are going to go, all right, that's enough on the problem. But the reason that you're doing that problem thing is because you just want to show I understand what you're feeling and the pain that you have. I feel your pain is the most useful way to feel. That's all you're trying to get across. And if you were to say, got poor circulation, and then this went on, if this much right here, that is the problem part. And that's really what they do. So the first line is, what if you could do just one thing to help ensure you won't be one of the 725,000 Americans who will die this year from a heart-related disaster? And then this, and what if taking this one simple step can help delay, avoid, and even improve old age health problems such as, and it names those. It's already hinting that there's a remedy. And then what if you found out this one remarkable remedy is not a dangerous prescription drug, not an expensive, dangerous surgery, and not even an over-the-counter medicine? When you flip the page, it probably says, because it's true. and then goes on to talk about the solution. All they want you to do is know that you understand where they are. And if you went on for 10 pages about pain, at the end of it, the person might be like, okay, now I feel too exhausted to live, and so-and-so is found on the floor, smoke coming out of the gun, pool of blood, and your direct mail package on the table. You just want, but on the other hand, you know, the end of America, for like 50% of that package, 70% of that package, it does nothing but talk about how we are screwed. But I guess that's because the scope of the problem was so big that they needed to show the whole feeling of it. And part of that pitch worked was because I want to show you that this problem is so much bigger than anybody is talking about, just as you suspected it was. So you're verifying the size and scope of the problem. But here, you just need to let them know that, yeah, I know, you know there's bad circulation problems for people. I know there are, and we both know you want to avoid them. Here's what you do. Identifying the wrong problem, identifying the same problem that everybody else identifies in the same way, and not offering a new solution that's different. Showing that you got the right problem, but you don't really understand what it means for somebody. You know, that there's some nuance to it. I guess those are among those. Okay, I think you were first. Okay. Right. So debunking, either debunking a myth. So you're saying he's saying he works in the healthcare industry, and what did you say the two were? What's wrong with me, and what do I need to do about it? So I'll just use as an example again this thing with the cough thing, because it was bothering me. You know what the worst part about having this cough, which it was much worse in August and September, was the bad part was maybe that I could be on a phone call and I would have to mute on Skype because I'd start coughing, and that would just be disruptive. Or it's just a pain in the neck to cough. It's also a little bit scary to have a cough and not know what it is. But the absolute worst part about the cough was that I couldn't stop coughing enough to tell my wife to stop worrying about me coughing. Or my kids, who my daughter said, is he okay? You know, because and I would like to say that's for noble reasons because I don't want them to worry, but it was mostly because it annoyed the hell out of me that they would worry, and I'd be like, it's just a cough. Leave me alone. Why did I start talking about that? Because the thing that I think somebody who heard that, what's wrong with me, I'd be trying to, do you have, like, if somebody wanted to approach me, what's my thing, they would have to understand why is the most annoying thing to me, what's the most annoying to me about it. And also, they would have to break those fears. The things that I wanted to tell her, look, I don't have this. I know that's true because I don't have that symptom. I don't have this because I don't have that symptom. I wanted to be able to answer that. Okay, so yes, that is often what's happening. And the people want to make sure that the rash that they have on their arm is not going to kill them, or that they know what it is, because uncertainty is what makes us feel unhappy. Lack of control in your life is what makes you feel unhappy. They want certainty. They want to be able to control it. And what can I do about it? How do I fix it? How do I get control back in my life? Here, and then, what time do we break for lunch? Oh, all right. Let's move. Let's do the questions in the break, okay? Can you guys remember those? All right. Okay, another one. This had enough. This is a long time ago. Hugely successful, written by a guy named Arthur Johnson for one of Agora's health products. And who do you think was the target? Enough turkey burgers and sprouts, enough forcing gallons of water down your throat, enough exercising until you can barely breathe before you give up everything just because everyone says it's healthy. See inside for the total health, real health effects. Enjoy a healthy life. Who's that targeting? It's targeting people who are sick of people telling them what to do about their health. This was mostly targeting grumpy middle-aged guys who people have been telling that you have to do this, you have to do that. Listen, you're not going to be healthy unless you switch to tofu. That was who that was for. Very successful. Hit a different emotion than you would expect in the health market. Okay, but the problem, it identified the right problem for those guys, was not the fear about the health issue or a nagging health issue. It was the fact that people just get in their face all the time about how to deal with their health. Okay. Again, you can get the slides. You'll get those things. Problem solution, frustrated audience, uncertain times, pain relief products. I always like your pitches. Before and after products. Before and after is a good way to think of problem solution too. So we have looked at on the more aware side. Why don't we pick up with the less aware side after lunch? Okay, so diving right in, we were talking about the ones that, lead types that are on the the more aware side, the more direct side. And now we're going to start talking about things that are going to work when you are looking at audience that are less aware. Somebody asked me during the break, what is it that they're aware of? And I did run through that Gene Schwartz list of those things that people are more aware of or less aware of for two reasons. One, because Todd had actually covered some of that during his presentation yesterday. The other is because breakthrough advertising has a really good, it goes in depth in that. And I didn't want us to go through methodically through it here, especially for people who have already read it. But if you haven't read that, you should read it because he does a much more engaging conversation about awareness, about desire, about the momentum of mass desire, all fascinating stuff. One of the things, though, about this side that I had said earlier, that this is the tougher side. This is the part where you start seeing copywriters prove their skills. And I'm going to dig in here let me see, I have some things for my throat here, just so I can keep talking. This is the tough area for copywriters, because to be indirect, you've got to sustain that interest in the lead for a little bit longer before you can talk about a product or anything else. So customers are fickle, they don't want to be sold right away, so they're resistant to something where it's obvious that they're being sold, yet at the same time, they want to know exactly what you're up to. So here you are trying to hold off on revealing that you're going to do a sale, and you have to hint at the fact that you're going to do a sale. So how do you do that? It's tough. But these are some of the ways that people can get into it, where you keep people engaged. So secrets and systems, we'll talk about those first. Has everybody ever seen this ad? This is an old classic. So this was a boardroom promotion. I think it was boardroom. What never ever to eat on an airplane. And then this was it's maybe a little confusing for you guys because it's also a thing where you're talking about trying out the book free. It's a soft offer for this book, so we actually know that there's a sale up front. But what is really compelling, what is the thing that's really compelling this sale? It's the curiosity, right? Curiosity about what not to eat on an airplane. Guess what never gets revealed in the ad? What never ever to eat on the airplane? I've probably read this ad 20 times. I fly thousands and thousands of miles every year. I will be flying tomorrow. I flew yesterday 9 hours. I had 2 airplanes, another 2 airplanes. I still have no idea what I'm not supposed to eat on an airplane. However, I think about it every time they put that tray down. I wonder if the thing I'm not supposed to eat is here. So far, I haven't found it. But okay, so the secret there, the power of secrets. When people have a secret, if somebody says to you, this is something that you'll notice on this side of the scale. You know, if I say, I have a promise to give you, people want to know what the promise is before they assign a value to it. If I say I have a problem to solve, I'm going to solve a problem for you. They're going to say, what problem? And is it relevant to me? On this side, you're not so sure who those people are. They're less aware of you. You're a little bit less aware of them. So you're trying to offer them something that you feel is going to engage people just because of the nature of the way human beings are. So on this side, people tend to like secrets. Say, I have a secret. You don't even know what that secret is. But now you're a little bit more curious. You're piqued in a way where you feel like, I might like that because I like secrets. Okay? So how Obama made $9.2 million with executive dividends, the secret part there, that's something we saw earlier on. The secret part is what? Executive dividends. We don't know what those are. And we certainly don't know how they're worth $9.2 billion. And depending on how you feel about Obama, that might make you feel one way or another, but your curiosity will be piqued. Okay, so the value of that is something, and guess what never gets revealed? What executive dividends are, until you pay. 7 dirty little secrets some multivitamin makers hope you never find out. Millions of people, maybe even you, take a multivitamin each day, but as it turns out, your multivitamin could be the one thing standing between you and vibrant, renewed health. What? The vitamin I'm taking could actually make me sick? Okay. So 7 dirty little secrets. Here's somebody with a secret, not a secret about something good, but a secret about something bad. Okay, what's the pull here? A secret. So, unlock Wall Street's secret logic. Somebody who's an investor is like, okay, I feel like the people on Wall Street have a system, have something that they're doing that I'm not doing that makes them do better. Now, this is a very old promo. A little bit dated, I think, probably. And I wrote it, but I wrote a long time ago. But what do people do? What do people do now in I thought maybe I had another example. When is there anybody here who subscribes to a financial newsletter? So when you get an upsell to some kind of system, a trading system, how often do you notice that those trading systems are almost always some kind of secret shortcut, some kind of way to get to the result you want to get that is going to be easier, faster, an insider's knowledge, something else, some angle to something that you've been kept out of before. Very, very common in the information publishing, financial publishing, is secrets and systems. This doesn't have to be only there, of course. You are offering people a way to do things that get them there faster, shortcuts, make things that work, and that can work in any different field. People want to know how to do something, a hack. This is like is on the huge thing on the internet, like lifehacker.com and everything. Hacks to do this, hacks to do that. Hacks are just secrets. Yes. Okay, so when you see, okay, very common in the financial field. So he's saying, yeah, 10 million, 10 becomes 10 million in a month or something like that. Okay. So when you see something like that, he's asking how, just to repeat that for everybody, how it affects refunds and general credibility using those kinds of things. And my answer would be, often it affects them badly. Because, well, I think it can affect it badly up front because people are going to read that, and if it's too ridiculous, they're going to be like, this is a scam. This guy is a huckster, is trying to sell me something. It can affect them badly on the back end. Sometimes it can work. Sometimes those work really well. Sometimes people justify them and put them through. And the truth from behind the scenes is that, particularly for Agora, our legal department is extremely strict. So if you can't show it mathematically, it can't be impossible or you can't use it. They'll let improbable go if the wording is hedging enough to allow that it's improbable. And then you have to have a line that will say, now, of course, this isn't going to happen in every scenario or even most scenarios, but what if you did it a little bit less and you hedge it back? But there's controversy when we talk about that, using those kind of promotions, because often what happens is somebody comes in on that kind of promise, and it's so hardcore, so over the top that when we can't fulfill on that, they feel gypped. They feel like hope unfulfilled. So it can burn. It can burn an audience. So you don't want to do, you really, as a business, you don't want to do that over and over again, because you'll burn your customers, especially if you have a business where you need to keep a relationship with those customers, which most businesses now are ongoing relationship-based businesses. So that I don't know if that quite ties into the secrets and systems, maybe into the trading systems, because that often happens. Have I written promotions like that? I think that if I thought back on it, I probably have, but I can't think of any in particular. I try to avoid them personally because I don't feel like they build the right relationship with a customer. And I feel the same way. This might be getting too much into inside baseball, just the financial publishing stuff. I feel the same way about stock picking promos, where you're going to send something out to 100,000 people focusing on a stock that costs $1. You are going to burn that market when that stock goes up and then it crashes. And you'll be like, awesome, I sold $2 million worth of subscriptions this weekend. Well, guess how much you're giving back next weekend? Probably about 1,950,000 of it when the thing crashes. And it's not just that. All those people are now like, man, you lied to me. And you think about the personal relationship thing, like you just cheated on me, or you pretended you pretended you had a mansion and a Rolls Royce, and I found out you're the butler, and your boss is on vacation, like some sitcom. All right, I'm going way off here, but yeah, but you basically, in general, you honor that relationship the way you would honor a personal relationship. You don't want to screw the people over, or you'll pay for it. Okay, so secrets and systems, good for trading services, invented term pitches. An invented term pitch is like when you reinvent the terminology around something. Why would you reinvent the terminology? It's interesting that we're talking about deception. So why would you talk about Plan B retirement checks or something else, gas pump revenge or something like that, where you're trying to say something differently? I'm sorry? You don't want to sell a commodity. Not quite. What you want to do. Exactly. You don't want them to dismiss the idea. You don't want them to immediately categorize them as something they have heard before. So you're trying to reinvent the term so that you get them in enough that you can talk to them and you can reveal what it is that you're talking about, or you might not reveal what it is you're talking about. But what you're trying to do is bring them in and get them to hear you without any kind of bias. Because we bring a bias. Well, there's a term. What you see is me trying to edit in my head, not to go off on a tangent, but I can't help it. I'm going to do it anyway. There's a term that one of my mentors, Bill Bonner, uses, the categorical imperative. He's using it wrong, and I've told him this for years and years. That is not what the categorical imperative means. It means something about moral authority and everything, and Immanuel Kant and all this other stuff. But it seems like that's what it should mean, so it still works. The categorical imperative, as he describes it, is people want to put things in categories. And you want to try to, that's why we do the pattern interrupt, that's why we do differentiation. We want them to feel like it's not what they think it is, it's something else. So you need to get them to do that so they'll listen to you. Okay. These other things you can see when I pass along the slides. But secrets can be very powerful just by the nature of secrets. People really like to have secrets. And if you have something that you feel like they don't know, or you feel like they don't realize is a great shortcut or something, you might think about, how can I recharacterize this? How can I redefine it so that they'll just give me a chance to talk to them? Okay. I think the conspiracies might actually fit in the next one. But certainly conspiracies involve some kind of secret keeping. So, okay. Now we're getting more into the indirect, unaware crowd. We're just trying to get attention. And we're trying to get it in a significant, profound way. A way that has some kind of meaning. So we're not just trying to smack them and say something, sex, now that I've got your attention, etc. We're actually trying to say something that's relevant to them, that means something to them, and you're trying to say it not with volume, but with difference enough that they'll be like, oh my God, there's a whole story here. This kind of thing, this kind of promotion is like, okay, read this or go broke, or End of America, or those other ones. These are more or less, if you look over the history of, for instance, Agora, has been their bread and butter, because you're telling what we call a macro news story, a macro event. You might not mention the product for a very long time in a promotion like this. You're talking about a big, significant situation, idea, breakthrough that they want to hear about. And they'll allow you to do that because it's like they're having a conversation with you about some significant, weighty idea. Yeah. If I know Dan, because I'm not sure I know what that is, but something I probably read about a long time ago, but from Dan. But yeah, it's a shock and awe kind of thing. It's like you say something that's a little bit outrageous or even a lot outrageous, and then you go on to talk about what's outrageous about it. This is a very nuanced kind of thing to do. It's difficult to do, but if you can do it well, this is how you can get to those people who don't know anything about you, don't know about the product, don't know about the problem they're solving or anything along those lines. But the topic itself is so fascinating that they're engaged. So again, go back to that relationship metaphor, meeting somebody at a cocktail party. How many times have you been standing there thinking to yourself, I don't do chit-chat very well. I am guessing that you could fill a room of 100 people and 99 of them going, I just don't know how to do chit-chat. I mean, you could all probably have a conversation about how crappy chit-chat is. But you're trying to figure that out, and then you start a little conversation with somebody, and then suddenly a topic breaks and you find yourself talking about something really fascinating, and you're going back and forth, and you're both passionate. That's what this is. You're cracking into that deep territory. Okay. Here's another one. For every illness, there is a country where it simply doesn't exist. This bulletin will tell you why. After you read this bulletin, you probably won't die of cancer, won't die of stroke, won't die from heart attack, won't die of diabetes, or any common condition. Now, that is an audacious thing to say, an audacious claim. And this is a bold idea. This is a very engaging idea, and then the stuff underneath is very bold and audacious. Nowhere in there is there a hint of what is, now somebody's getting this in the mail, or if we're online, somebody's clicking on this and going to it through their newsletter or wherever they're getting the ad, or Facebook or something. There's a basic understanding between the people who are reading it and the people who wrote it that yes, it probably is going to be trying to sell them something. But up to this point, this is a kind of we're willing to be seduced. And you boldly do this, you feel like I'm going to get something out of this, even though I don't know whether he's selling a newsletter or a health service or vitamins or some kind of book on some kind of technique that I'm going to do or a recipe book. I have no idea what he's going to sell me. But I feel like when I read this, I'm going to learn something really kind of cool and fascinating. And I'm going to be able to use that in my life. So that's what's going on there. End of America, we've kind of talked about this one. Okay, bold, the end of America. That struck people right away, so wake up call. So predictions and declaration leads. These are when you've got an audience out there, new and or jaded, because it's kind of like a loop. Like sometimes you get people who are so overexposed, they're so oversold. They've heard promises left and right. They have heard problem solution left and right. They need somebody to come out and say something fresh. And somebody says something like a bold statement. I'm like, wait, what did you just say? And they want to hear something about that. And that's what's going on there too. Macro news products, anything that's a newsy type of product where the significance of the product is the relationship that somebody has with those people over kind of shared ideologies or something, generally speaking, beliefs about the world. They tend to work very well with these kinds of promotions. Ahead of big events, now would be a good time to write things, if you could, about what's going to happen with the elections in November, or, we had ones in 1999. We had a huge success with a promotion called The Silence of the Trains. That promotion was about the Y2K bug. And I mean, right now, we think the Y2K bug, some of you have no idea what it is, and those of you who remember it are like, boy, we were so crazy back then. But back then, we had one editor who actually he was no longer making payment on some of his debts, and he was like not preparing for a legal battle that he had coming up or whatever, because he's like, what's the point? In a month, that's all going to get wiped from the computers. I'll be free. So yeah, but so a lot of people were out there feeling that way. Anyway, ahead of big events, to a lesser aware audience, ahead of uncertain times. Uncertain times are times where we feel things lurking. We feel things on the horizon. Presidential re-election, things like that. We feel what's going on. Something that's bold and controversial. Breakthrough products, some huge breakthrough or some huge change or anything like that. So you're really just trying to disrupt with just the idea itself. Okay, last category, stories. Here's one. Detroit steelworker collects $285,420 per year from a global retirement fund. Drawing on massive cash reserves of the world's wealthiest nations, this $18 trillion fund could pay you $115,620 per year for the rest of your life, or enroll today and get your first check by October 27th, 2008. There's actually a lot of things going on there. Impure sample. It's clearly got an offer going on there. I clearly know that something's going to be sold. There are some big promises going on at the top, but it is basically a story-driven promotion about this guy. So what is the benefit of doing things in a story sense? Let me show you a couple more examples, and then we'll talk about, okay. Here's a different one. This is a different tack. This is another one of the Stansberry things, actually. This is, for you guys who know Porter, I pulled a lot of these when the Stansberry group was doing even better than the Agora Financial group, but I like their examples because they really did master a lot of these forms and a lot of, they just really did copy that. It's really clean and easy to point to. This one is basically saved Porter Stansberry's career. He was working as an editor, and he got fired, and he wanted to find his way back into the fold before he had to go back to Florida and become a lifeguard, which is what he was doing before he became a financial guru. And he wrote this promotion, and he sent it around to me and to Mark Ford and to Bill Bonner and a whole bunch of other people to look through. He must have rewritten it 15 or 20 times. This is a good example of a promotion where when you read it, somebody had said this yesterday, when you read the work somebody did over 3 months and you get it in 20 minutes, you're like, oh my God, I'll never be able to write like this. He did that in this one. He did a really great job. And this new railroad across America that's making some people very rich was the introduction of fiber optic cables. This was back another 1990s promotion. And he did it by talking about the history of the railroads and how that changed the whole American economy by uniting the coasts with the railroad that went across. And the print is too fine even for me to read off of here, but the lead takes the reader and puts them on that train that's going across the great expanse of America, and the wind going by, and what that would have been like. Really nicely done. And the story is that person, the hero of the story is actually the reader who's reading it on the train. So nicely done story there. Outlawed for 41 years, now legal again. We talked about this one where it opens up telling the story about the Rothschilds and how what their life was like, and picturing how opulent it was, and what control they had over Europe and the finances of Europe. And this one, another super classic. This is Bill Bonner. Another one that takes the reader and puts them in a scenario in a storytelling kind of way. So I'll just read this part out loud. You look out your window past your gardener, who's busily pruning the lemon, cherry, and fig trees amidst the splendor of gardenias, hibiscus, and hollyhocks. The sky is clear blue. The sea is a deeper blue, sparkling with sunlight. A gentle breeze comes drifting in from the ocean, clean and refreshing, as your maid brings your breakfast in bed. For a moment, you think you've died and gone to heaven, but this paradise is real and affordable. In fact, it costs only half as much to live this dream lifestyle as it would to stay in your own home. So he packed this whole idea in this scene, a scene that could have said, you can live in paradise for the same price as staying in your own home, which is not bad either. But here, this person is reading this, and they can almost smell the flowers on the breeze and feel what it's like to look out that window and see that crystal blue ocean and sparkling with sunlight. And then one more, and then this is, of course, the super classic. They laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play. And it goes on and talks about this guy who sits down at a party at the piano, and people all start laughing because they think he must be clowning around, that he can't really play the piano. And lo and behold, even his closest friends had no idea how great he was at playing the piano. I don't know why, but in the 80s, I felt that way about breakdancing. I have no interest in breakdancing at all. I just wanted to be able to one time go, oh, that looks kind of cool, and then do it, and then never do it again. But why stories? Why use stories to do leads? Now, there are lots of people that do story-type leads, so it has to be a really good story. You can't just default at doing a story, do a lead. But the power of stories is the same as the power of secrets, or the same power of like bursting something out, a declaration that surprises people, is that people tend to like stories. It's like, oh my God, I have this really amazing story to tell you. You have no idea what it is, but you might already feel like invested to sit and say, that's an amazing story. I like stories. I'd like to hear it told. We're often willing to sit, and that's what a lead is trying to do. A lead is trying to get that person to be willing to listen to you for just a little bit longer, until you get them to the point that they commit and say, okay, tell me your spiel. So a story can take even those other lead type ideas. It can take a promise, it can take a problem, a solution, and it can wrap it in a narrative, and that narrative has a way of transporting people in a subconscious kind of way, that they don't think about what you're trying to do. They're just willing to hear a story, and then when it's done, they might realize themselves, oh, that was kind of a before and after scenario that sounds interesting to me, or oh, that was a situation where somebody went from rags to riches, or somebody divulged a secret or a shortcut that really sounds pretty cool. Stories can work for all kinds of things, and really you could become somebody who sells stuff nothing by story, and it probably would serve you pretty well. That is a very general way to approach a cold audience. If you can tell the right kind of story, that could work. Okay, so a list there of different things they could use for. So stories might be a confession of something like, listen, confessions of a failed investor. And they might be something that's the dramatic origin of a product, like how it came about, or a rags to riches guy saying, like, I was in your situation and here's what I did. When doctors feel sick, this is what they do, kind of thing. You know, tell the story of the doctor, and then but the dramatization really brings people in to dramatize what's happening. So a lot of what we're doing when we're selling something is dramatizing the results. So if anything, if you want to perfect just one thing about writing persuasive copy, it's a good idea to perfect your ability to sell stories. So tell the stories over and over again until you get really good at it. I have to confess, I have never liked, as somebody who thought I was going to be a novelist, and who still thinks that maybe one day I will be, I never liked that term about suspending disbelief, is usually what people say. And the reason why is actually a little bit not quite an answer to your question, but I think it's valid for storytelling, is that suspension of the disbelief is requesting something of the reader, of the viewer. And it is not the job of the viewer to make your story palatable. It's the job of the writer. So I don't like it, because I think you're never asking anybody to suspend their disbelief. You're just bypassing it by being really good at telling your story so it feels believable, even if they're watching people rebel against the empire and blow up the Death Star, which we're thinking to ourselves, well, that doesn't happen. But the way the story is told, how it could have happened in a galaxy far away, and we have no idea what happens in galaxies far away, and blah, 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 we become convinced because it's so well told. If they did that and then somebody spilled their Diet Coke in the middle of the scene where they're fighting, taking over the rebel ship, they'd be like, oh, well, that blows the whole story. Does it work because people suspend their belief? I think they do suspend some of their resistance. I guess that maybe that would be a more direct answer, because people are willing to hear a story, and then you tell the story, and then they'll judge. But it's so much ingrained in the way that we talk to people. It is how we package information and deliver it to another culture, deliver it to kids in a classroom, teaching history. Relating jokes are just stories. When you talk to somebody and you entertain people at a party, the person who's most entertaining is probably the one who's going to be telling some really good stories. So it's just a way to pack information. The product, it's easier to answer your last question first, which is generally not to start. The way that you figure out, so he's asking, how do you decide which one of these 6 lead types you're going to use and when are you going to use it? It starts with that guy on the pillow staring out, going, what the hell is going on with my life? Or, I can't wait to do something in my life. That's where it starts. That's how you decide. So you have to do the work to figure out who that person is, what they care about, and what they believe in. Now, how do you do that? That's really hard work. That's why it can be really lucrative to be a copywriter. That's why it can be really lucrative to have a business that's going to do better than somebody else, because you figure out what that person cares about. So there's no pat answer to that, but you have to just be saturated in what those people believe and feel and want to be, and you start to get that idea and what they're aware of, what they know. So how would I do that research? Somebody asked me in the break how I would do that kind of research. I would try to talk to people who are in my field. I would, since I'm in the financial field, I'd like to meet people at conferences and just talk to them about it, or talk to people in my own life who, I mean, all my promotions that I signed my mother up for all kinds of mailing lists and just flooded her with direct mail, and she would occasionally put we'd go home to visit. She always was more concerned about the financial stuff than my dad, or he just kind of let her do a lot of the stuff. He did stuff with the financial stuff, and then she wanted to do like the extra mile. And I'd come home and the promotions would be either in the room that I usually stayed in when I was there with a note on the top saying, "Did you write this?" ? Which meant she thought, "Oh, this is so nicely written. What a good boy, I'll put it on the fridge." Or "What's this stock?" And that promotion I knew was going to be really good. So she was somebody that I would talk to try and find out about their other people. You try and run it by. You read you find out what they're reading, and you read it. Or you find out what they want to read that they haven't, and you read it, because that person just spent 2-3 years doing research into who those people are. You listen to the shows that they listen to. You watch the movies that are popular, so you get plugged into culture. If there's one way to answer it, it's you have your ear to the ground. But everybody has that experience of when they start trying to figure out how to do something, all of a sudden everybody's talking about the thing that you were talking about. The truth is they aren't all of a sudden talking about the thing that you're talking about, but you're listening better. So that's what that is. Okay, I just have a couple more and then we'll jump into looser stuff. Oops. I wanted to close, I opened with that Gene Schwartz quote. I really like this quote. This is from Gary Bencivenga. This is another one that almost borders on, to me, it's like kind of direct response poetry, if there's such a thing. You guys know that Gary Bencivenga is. He's just probably the most successful direct response copywriter ever. He's also probably one of the nicest people who's ever in the business. He said, "The vast majority of products are sold because of the need for love, the fear of shame, the pride of achievement, the drive for recognition, the yearning to feel important, the urge to look attractive, the lust for power, the longing for romance, the need to feel secure, the terror of facing the unknown, the lifelong hunger for self-esteem, and so on. Emotions are the fire of human motivation, the combustible force that secretly drives most decisions to buy. When your marketing harnesses these forces correctly, you will generate explosive increases in response." So I put that up there because I think what's important to just keep going back to that idea, this whole entire thing, all those lead types, all the things are not magic templates that you pick and apply, whatever, thoughtlessly, because they fit some product model that you have or fit some revenue agenda that you have. This is always about shortcuts to human relationships with a customer. Even in the B2B space, even though the personalities are different, the environment's different, you behave different in a workspace, you are still just communicating one-on-one with another human being. So all these things are designed to do that. So we can end there and then move on to talking about some of the submissions you guys sent in.
Yeah, before we do that, I want to cover very quickly, if I can, a couple things as it relates to thank you, man, to the big idea. Some of you have heard me talk about this before, and others maybe haven't, but hopefully this will clear up some things. We'll also give Jack the opportunity to soothe the throat a little bit. And so the way that I want you to think about it is I want you to think about the big idea, because I know that there continues to be some level of kind of confusion a bit with some folks about what's the difference between the big idea and the headline. Is there a difference between the big idea and the headline? Is there a difference between the unique mechanism that we talk about and the big idea? And what's the difference between the big idea, the headline, and the lead and whatnot? And so I want to try to simplify a couple of these definitions for you. And so the first thing is that, and I would love to, if I say anything that you disagree with, keep it to yourself. All kidding. But is this, so first and foremost, the idea, right? Like I said to you guys and gals yesterday, we're in the idea business. You're presenting an idea, right? There's an idea behind every movie. There's an idea behind every book, just like there's an idea behind every marketing campaign. And the quality of your idea is going to determine the level of attention you get, the level of engagement you create, whether you stand out or not, right? And in order to get attention, in order to create engagement, you need to stand out. You need to separate your message from everything else. And so for me, the idea is the thing that does that, first and foremost. So we were talking earlier, a few of us were talking earlier, Charles, and we were talking about, kind of approaching campaigns from a tactical perspective, like so where does the big idea come into play in the ad, and where does the big idea come into play in the campaign? And I said, take a step back, and first and foremost, where I invest the majority of my energy, effort, and attention always is in the development of the idea. My radar is always up and out. I'm always looking for the seeds of a potential big idea. And the way I think about it, it sounds crude. My wife hates when I use this term, but I'm looking for something that is sexy. I'm looking for something that like the market is going to lust after in terms of an idea. They're going to hear it, they're going to see it, and they're going to stop dead in their tracks, and they're going to say, whoa, I need to hear more about this. Why? Because it's different, because it's new, because it's fresh, because it's something that they haven't been told before, they haven't seen it before, they haven't heard it before. That's the type of idea that you are looking for. And that's the area where if you really, you don't want to settle in that area there, and that's an area where you need to be patient. You need to be patient, meaning you're not going to sit down, right? Like, it's not, when I talk about the big idea and people are like, oh, it's so easy for you, Todd. You sit down and, right, like, and 20 minutes later, you got a big idea. And I'm like, that is the complete antithesis of the way it happens in my life, right? If I sit down with the intention of coming up with a big idea, I can't even come up with ordinary ideas at that point. And so you've got to let it marinate. For me, it's why constantly I have to let things sit. You have to let things sit. You have to turn over the information in your head. You have to mix it around a little bit. You have to let it stir. You have to let it sit, and you can't rush it. The beautiful thing is, and I've said this before, and it's kind of cool that, Rich is here, and I would love to put him on the spot, not manipulate him the way he did me, but put him on the spot and get his insight. But, the thing with James Webb Young and that book, Technique for Producing Ideas, is that what he talks about, which is just so brilliant, is that ideas are really finding connections, right? Ideas are really all about finding connections between two seemingly disconnected things, right? Things that the ordinary individual wouldn't see. That how is there a connection between these two weird, one thing over here and one thing over here? And it's taking these existing things that are out there and finding those new connections, right? And so if you look at that railroad across America, the beauty, like Jack said, the beauty is that promotion was all about, at the heart of that promotion, it was about the telecommunications industry is about to take off because of, fiber optic cable, voice over IP is now gonna change the whole game. And if you can get in on this voice over IP, fiber optic cable now early, you stand to make a fortune. But what Porter saw was that there was a connection between the spread of fiber optic cable and the change that it was going to make to the telecommunications industry and the opportunity to get wealthy. He saw a connection between that and the way the railroad spread across America and the opportunity back then to get wealthy and the wealth that that produced. He saw this connection. Whereas the typical marketer, the typical copywriter would be thinking about, a headline or an idea that's like how to get rich off the spread of fiber optic cable, or how to get rich off the coming voice over IP, or how to get rich off of, right? They'd be thinking the ordinary, right? Not looking for this strange connection. And so how to outsource your life. Exactly. Jack just said how to outsource it. That's the common, the ordinary. How to outsource your life. Tim Ferriss is the 4-hour work week. Totally different. Same, right? Same content, same material. The reason why, that's really important. It's really important because I've often said before, there are two people that I really think are brilliant. And I say it because I mean it, not because one of them is my friend. But so the two people that I believe, that I feel are brilliant, one is Jay Abraham, and the other one is, what's the guy's name, Rich? No, is is Rich. But here's the truth of the matter is that really it's just because they see connections that others don't. I could sit down with Rich and I could have been working on a problem or working on a campaign idea and like mulling it over, and I'll share it with Rich and he'll think about it for, 15 seconds, 20 seconds or whatever, and he'll see something like, well, isn't that kind of like X? And I'm like, oh gosh, he nailed it. The beautiful thing, right, I believe that, there are some folks that are really just natural, brilliant at that, but it's also a muscle that can be developed. And I believe that you can develop that muscle of seeing connections by proactively forcing yourself to develop ideas every day that are based on connections, right? So James Altucher is this guy who recommends the 10 ideas a day or the idea sex, right? And forcing yourself to look for connections. Pick two seemingly disconnected things that you think have nothing to do with each other, that are not connected at all, and see how many connections you could make, right? Like the tire on your car and your monitor, your computer monitor. And force yourself to start to see connections. I'm not even talking about ideas, like I'm not talking about Altucher's idea. I'm just talking about training yourself to look for connections that other people wouldn't see, that if you weren't proactively doing it, you wouldn't see, but force yourself to start to see these connections. And you'll train your mind to begin to spot connections that others didn't see. Go ahead, Teddy. Thinker toys. Okay.
There is chaos. You create the chaos of information, and you put it in a contained space. Something is going to link up. I would think a thing that's interesting about that idea of training yourself to do connections. Is there anybody who does improv comedy? Okay, so improv comedy ends up with what? People taking something that somebody else did and finding a connection to it so they can do that and bridge something else. You take a class about writing comedy, which I did take one when I was in New York. Didn't take, as you can tell. But what they tell you to do is go and take a newspaper or something. Take something where you see something every day, and you tie it to something else. You just add something to that. You add a layer onto something. You connect it to something. People come to the comedy show, they laugh, and then somebody says, it's funny because it's true. Because they're connecting it to something that's your experience, and they're adding another layer onto it. The connection thing, the connections that happen is we're taking not just two disparate things, which is creativity, but you're taking something that I know and something I don't know, and you're linking them together to build a bridge to understanding how it works. Everything comes down to this. Yes, exactly. I just said this, and Rich wasn't in the room. love that contraction because we all have just lived through that experience. Our whole life has changed. I don't know. I like that you see that. You connect them. Can I tack something onto that?
Plus, bowel health is a really crappy niche.
I am not going to talk about bowel health, but I think that before we talked a lot about differentiation, and that idea of going outside to the edges of what you're doing is dovetails with that perfectly because in order to differentiate, you have to do something different. So if everybody lives inside the realm of, okay, I'll say it, bowel health, and they're thinking about all that, they have probably explored many of these ideas that are inside that space. If you're going to change the message, you have to pull something in that's outside that space. But you can't go far, far, far afield, how President Trump's tweets are affecting your bowel health or something bizarre. You have to do something that's almost in the field and pull that in. So.
It could be affecting their bowel health. I'm just going to say that, but jumpstart your brain. Awesome, awesome. So I want to finish. Go ahead. Did you have a question? Uh, jumpstart your brain. Right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. But so, did anybody else have a question before I just finished up?
That was actually inspirational, so I feel guilty telling a story that's totally insignificant after that, but I'm going to anyway. Do you guys know the Eminem story? This is all copywriting lore too. No, Yeah, not the M&M the rapper. M&M's the candy. Um, so melts in your mouth and not in your hands. Um, sorry, I don't remember the name of the copywriter. That's what I thought you said. So the guy who came up with that, I think, is the same guy who came up with the term unique selling proposition, but I don't remember. However, what happened was he went down to the offices of the guys who make M&Ms, I guess Mars and Mars or whoever it is, and the person was they're somehow British roots. I haven't told this story for so long I don't remember all the details. But the guy went through. He said, "Well, basically we got the idea because when we were in the military, went through as we needed some field rations, we needed some kind of quick energy boost that they had in the chocolates, but the chocolates would melt and then it would get on your hands and then you would gum up your gun equipment." And they came up with these M&Ms with these candy-coated shells. Not M&Ms to them, they were just chocolate candy-coated shells. So it's basically war technology. So we went through this long thing and told that history, told about how they made it, told about all the perfections of the candy and the meanings of the different colors and all this other stuff. They had this long meeting about M&Ms, simple, round, tiny little M&Ms, and probably ate a lot of M&Ms. And the guy's like, he said, really, I mean, after all that, he said, really, the thing is that if you have them, they'll melt when they're in your mouth, but they don't melt when you're in their hands. And he said, okay. He took his notes. He went home. And for a week, he did nothing. And then he went back in and he said, I've been working on this for a week, and I came up with a slogan. They melt in your mouth, but not in your hands. And he got paid a fortune for that, and M&Ms have become the top-selling candy in the world based on that slogan. But all he did was spend a lot of, but could he have done that? Could he have walked into that meeting and said, tell me what, in one word, one sentence, what this is? No, he had to go through that long story about the military history and all the other stuff. You can't skip that part, but it's that thing, pouring lots of stuff, talking to people, walking around, bumping into people. And if you're a virtual worker like I am, and like all the MFA guys are, you need face-to-face time. You need to just be around. I go down to Baltimore sometimes, and I just go find out where Joe is, and I just sit in his office. And just like, why are you here? I'm just here. I just want to be there because something's going to happen. People are going to walk through. They're going to have a conversation. I'm going to go over here. It's going to give me an idea. I'm going to talk about that to them. They're going to have an idea. That's what that is. So you have to be doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think, and then we'll go to Sam. You really, you have to be receptive and open. You've got to recognize, and it was really Gene Schwartz that said this, right, that the ideas don't come from within you. They're out there. You have to find them. You have to dig them out, right? And it's why, when you look at research, I forget who it was who said it, but, you research with a hand truck. Like, it might be the least exciting part of engineering your marketing campaign, this idea of researching and digging, but that's where the best ideas are found. You're not gonna come up with an idea like that just sitting back at your desk and wondering about the candy. The ideas are out there. They are for you to find them. They're for you to look at the things out there, what you hear from the market, what you see in your research, what you stumble across, what gets said in passing, and then looking for connections. And so it's out there. Did you tell the story, because I had to step out a couple times, did you by any chance tell the story, the legend of, and I'm assuming that there's at least some truth to this story, of the Mark Ford and his family coming back from vacation on the plane, and they meet they see a guy drawing, and so this is the story as I heard it. And you know the story. And so basically they're flying home, Mark with his family, and guy next to them is, turns out the guy next to them is one of the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is many, many, many moons ago. Obviously, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, huge franchise thing, blew up. And so, of course, Mark, being the curious individual that he is, wants to know, how did you come up with such a an amazing idea, an idea that like just took the public by storm. And basically, in a nutshell, the guy says, well, so we looked at what's hot out there, what people were attracted to and buying, what's hot, and we knew that it was mutants, right? Ninjas and turtles, and we were going to be marketing to teenagers. And so we came up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so, it's paying attention to what is out in the marketplace. And it was Mike Palmer that talked about, looking for what's hot out there, right? Like the way it's funny. I had Amazon send me a little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle that sits on my desk in my home office as a reminder for me to continually look for what's hot. So I'll look at our marketplace. I'll look at our prospects and I'll look for what are the topics, what are the ideas, what are the things that are hot, what are the issues on the forefront of their mind, what are the things that they want to hear more about, what are the terms that are trending up, right? And I look for opportunities to combine more than one. But the really important part, which is what Jack talked about earlier with the 3-step process, is what's the story that nobody else is telling about that either the one hot thing or the combination of hot things. What's the story that nobody else is telling? What's the angle that nobody else is telling? So if you see that everybody is talking about cryptos and they're talking about one angle of cryptos or blockchain or something like that, it's what's the story that they're not telling? What's the angle that they're not telling? What's the perspective that's not being shared that you can leverage? So you're taking the thing or the things that are hot in your market's mind, the things that are sexy, the things that are already grabbing their attention, and you're looking for a new way, a different way, a side way in to start to talk about that, to grab their attention. And so with that, I just want to very quickly, what we're going to do is I just want to finish up how I see, again, the big idea. I want to go back to how I originally started. Then I'm going to give you guys just a 5-minute coffee break so that we can get some chairs up here, and then we're going to do the hot seats. But so I approach the big idea as, first and foremost, I'm looking for ideas. The really interesting thing, this is one of those things we could have had, because Rich was part of it many years ago. I had a 2-day event just about the big idea, which is crazy. And Joe came in and Rich came in, and so this is one of my favorite topics. But the interesting thing is that what a lot of marketers do is they'll come up with let's say a campaign idea or a campaign, or they have a product, and then they try to find an idea that's a sexy way to market that thing. And that's okay, because we all have existing products and product catalogs and so on and so forth. But the interesting thing, on one of my trips to Baltimore, when I was having lunch with Joe and Addison Wiggin, I asked them about what percentage of your big winners, your big monster campaigns, what percentage are based on product first and then idea versus idea first that spawned the product? Right, so what percent, like the big winners, what the big percentage, is it coming from you've got a product and then from the product you figure out the idea, or is it you figure out the idea, you come up with the idea and then figure out the product? And he said that the big winners are idea first, then product. Idea first. And I believe that that's because when you're not starting with a product, you're not constrained. You get to just look at, when you're willing to be open, right? When you're willing to be open, you could just look around at your market. You could just ask yourself, as a student of your market, as a student of your market's desires, your market's passions, your market's motivators, your market's drivers, what they're acting on, right? You could just look, what are they responding to right now? What are the ideas that are resonating with them? What are the things that are moving with them, right? What are those hot areas? What are the different angles that people are taking, so that I can see what are the angles that people aren't taking when marketing to them? And I get to just look for extremely sexy and hot ideas. And so when I said earlier that Mark said to me, right, that the one thing that changed the whole course for me, that we are in the idea business, I I recommend that you live that out in terms of how you seek out and develop these ideas. Ideas, a great idea will carry a weak marketing message. In other words, a great idea does the heavy lifting. A great idea. You know what? And I'm going to go on a tangent. I don't mean to commandeer the mic and do your thing, right? Is this, right? And I want you to get this. I want you to understand this, right? And that is this, that, the thing to understand, what I find, because now, with acquire and monetize, when people are on the calls and submitting leads and submitting headlines and submitting marketing arguments, and we're looking at them and I'm giving my feedback on them, and I find that there's a lot of very hyperbolic, exaggerated copy. There's a lot of hyped up, there's a lot of puffery out there in the copy. Number one, I feel like a lot of people have been led to believe that that's good copy, right? That the steroid-like, explosive, growth hormone triggering, muscle building, ferocious freak show-like supplement, like that's good copy. Right, that adjective-laden copy is the way to go. And the reality is that it's the complete antithesis of good copy. Good copy doesn't read like copy. Good copy doesn't feel like copy. Good copy you don't sense that you're being sold and manipulated. It does not read that way. But here's the real thing, right? This is what I want you guys to understand, that I feel that it largely stems from people starting with a weak idea. When you got a weak, run-of-the-mill, average idea, and what I would say, to be really crude, is, right, you're starting with a pig, and now you're trying to put lipstick on that pig and make it look all nice, right, with your flowery language. You got an ordinary, right, like maybe you got a product even that's just subpar, that's okay. You got an ordinary idea. In order to make it sound grand and great, you got to use grand language and great adjectives. And you're trying to prop it up. You're trying to prop up a weak idea, right, with powerful language. But the reality is this, that you don't need that powerful language or puffed up language when you've got a powerful idea. When you've got a great idea, the idea itself does the heavy lifting. And so you need to invest time, energy, and effort in whatever is necessary in terms of that time, energy, and effort to develop those ideas. And it reminds me in a lot of ways of hiring. And I think that we used to talk about it years ago, Rich and I, like hiring and recruiting. The worst time to start to hire people is like when you just had to terminate somebody, right? Or somebody just resigned, right? Because like now you're under the gun and your decision-making process is going to be skewed a little bit. You should be recruiting and hiring all year round. You should be looking for all-stars all year round. You should be striving to improve your team, right, David, all year long. It never ends, right? I'm always looking for all-stars. I would always love to bring another all-star aboard. I share that with you in this context because you should always be looking for big ideas. You should always be on the hunt for ideas. You should always be open to ideas. And you've got to recognize that that's where the game begins. When you start with a big idea, everything else is infinitely easier. It's why oftentimes you start with a big idea, you start with a powerful idea. The beauty is just share it. Share it. You don't worry about colorful language. Don't worry about all this stuff. The idea will do the heavy lifting. And so, first and foremost, did you want to add anything? No? Okay. He was looking at me like he was staring me down. I don't want to glance over there. So for me, I look at the idea. The idea does one thing. This is the idea, the role of the idea is this: to cut through the noise. To cut through the noise in a saturated marketplace. I said earlier that the idea itself is the pattern interrupt. The idea itself, right? An idea that is new, unique, different, fresh, timely, right? That is a pattern interrupt. When it's something that they haven't heard before or seen before, that is a pattern interrupt. And so the idea is there to get attention. Now, the difference between the idea and the headline is the words that you use to convey the idea, right? There's a lot of different ways to convey the same idea, a lot of different words. I might choose one verb, you might choose another verb. The headline is how you express the the idea, right, in the most succinct, simple, clear manner. And when it comes to copy, like, look, it's, and I believe that it was Mark that really drilled this into me, it's clarity over creativity. When in doubt, I've had clients that are, students in A&M or even Top One that I'll read off a paragraph that they have in their copy, and I'll say, like, wow, it's a lot going on there. What were you trying to say in that paragraph? And they'll say, well, I was really just trying to say that these type of mushrooms are the healthiest mushrooms for you to consume. And so I say, well, why didn't you just say that? Why didn't you just say that? Say that, not this, that. The simple thing. Right? And so clarity trumps creativity. It's all about being crystal clear. And when you have a big idea, let it shine through because it's going to do the heavy lifting. For me, the idea, right, I see it as it's what gets attention. Right? Now, the lead, and I'm gonna simplify this. So I'm gonna boil down regardless of which lead type you choose. In my mind, the idea is what gets the attention. It's what stops the prospect and gets them to say, okay, let me hear more about it. Like, whoa, this is new. This is a little different. Let me go a little further and let me see what this is about. And then the lead, right, the first 300, 400, 500, 600 words is all about getting them emotionally sold. What do we mean when we say emotionally sold? To me, it's leading somebody to the point where emotionally they're like, dang, that's what I love that. Like, I want that. That sounds good to me, right? Like, that is like, you've got me. I'm interested. I want to, like, if it's what you're saying, I'm in. Count me in, right? Like, if it's what you're saying, tell me, how do I get it? Tell me the price. Like, give me some details on getting this. Because emotionally, it's exciting. Emotionally, it is compelling. That's all I'm trying to do. And so for me, typically in the lead, I'm unpacking what it is that I said in the headline a little bit. So I'm expanding a little bit on the benefits. I'm adding in maybe some more layers to the benefits. Maybe I'm dimensionalizing it a little bit more. I might be teasing the unique mechanism in there. Like, here's why you're gonna experience this, and just getting them to say, dang, that sounds good. Like, if that's what it is, I want it. And then once I've got them there, once I've got them saying, wow, that's what I want, right? Then I go into what I call the marketing argument. This is where sometimes Rich and I have some debates with certain things. The marketing argument for me is to do one thing. One thing. The rest, the bulk, the body of the marketing argument is to do one thing. And that is to provide the logical support for that emotional desire. Meaning, in other words, I'm going to prove to them now that the thing that I just got them excited about, the thing that they said to themselves, like, if this is true, this is it. If this is true, if this thing really works, if this thing can really get me crypto, like profits on autopilot night and day, 24/7, I'm in. Now you read on. You read on why? Because you read on to say, well, let me see, show me. Yeah, this sounds great, but let me see. Convince me that what you're saying is true. Convince me. So you have to show them how it works, why it works. You don't have to give away everything, but you want to fill in those gaps in their mind. You want to complete that argument for them, right? And so for me, that becomes a mix of the logical points, the rationale, like I'm teaching, I'm explaining why it works and how it works. And I'm providing the proof and the evidence so that they can say at the end, okay, now I know why it works. Now I know why he or she can promise me X. Now I get it. Now I want it. Now tell me what the deal is. Now tell me the dollars and cents. Now I believe it. I see why it works. I understand why it works. Now I want it. At which point, we present them with a superior, irresistible, no-brainer offer. Now we just want to make it a no-brainer for them to go ahead, right? We want to make it seem like I wanted it. I wanted it. I got all the proof and evidence necessary to see that it's legit and it works. And here is an offer for me to do it that's a total no-brainer. Done deal. Done deal. And so the idea, the way I look at it, the analogy or metaphor, the idea is the bait in the water. Right, like I learned, like, so I'm on there's water in my backyard, right, very common in South Florida. And so when I first moved from Jersey to South Florida, I would take my little girls out back and we'd throw, like, let's fish a little bit, you know, and I'm not an outdoorsman by any stretch of the imagination. And so I'm out there and we have some big bass in this water, man. And so, you know, I would feel something on the line, and my girls were, you know, they were this big at the time. Now they're like just this big. It's the genes. And so I feel something on the lure, you know, whatever. I'd ask my neighbor to use these lures or whatever, and I'm out there and I'm doing my thing, and I feel something, and so I start reeling I would start reeling this thing in, and my kids are jumping up and down as you know, I'm about to pull out a whale, and I'm feeling like a hero, like, you know, like I'm a stud, and then yeah, daddy's all, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what's the deal? And I reel in and I pull the thing up and there's just a little lure on the end, right? And I'm like, I don't get it. All right, maybe whatever. I get, you know. And so we would keep fit. We would go out and, you know, and I'd be next time I'd go out and same thing and fish, and the kids would jump. No, yeah, oh, this is it, and it would come off, right? And then I learned, and I'd say to my neighbor, like, I don't know what the, you know, like I don't know this. What am I doing wrong, man? And my neighbor's like, all right, so you know, you feel something on the lure. He's like, are you setting the hook? I'm like, what do you mean? Before you reel it in, man, set the hook. Like, set it so that, because if you don't and you start pulling in, the fish is going to just let go. Fish is going to let go, and that's what I was experiencing. I would get excited and just start reeling, like, oh, man, this is it. And so then the next time we went out there, I felt that thing, and I was like ready to start reeling in, ready to go back to my old, and I was like, and then I pulled that thing out, and it was the greatest day of my life at that point. Like, you know, I'm standing out there as if I'm ready to conquer the wilderness.
See, if that were me, I'd be an old boot.
I would have faked like it was moving and then threw it back in real quick. But yeah, it's a boot fish, girls. It's a boot fish. But I share that with you, all kidding aside, I share that with you because that to me is what the lead does. See, the idea is the bait in the water. The idea is what gets the attention of the prospect. It's what gets the attention of the fish, so that the fish sees, oh, something over there. Let me see. Let me bite. Let me take that thing in my mouth to see what it's all about, right? And then the job of the lead is to set that hook, so they don't swim off, right? And then I provide the support. I reel them in with the marketing argument, right? And the way I look at it is, as I'm reeling that, after I set that hook, as I'm reeling that fish in, they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, right, to the land that I'm standing on, to my backyard. And so that's the equivalent. When I'm reeling in is me delivering the argument, is me delivering the beliefs, is me shaping their perspective. Now here's the one last thing that I wanna say, and then if you wanna, you know, or Rich, and then I'll keep going for the rest of the day, and then I'll give you guys a break, and we'll do the hot seats. Is this: have you ever looked at who's looked at the stats, the analytics for a VSL? Like who's pulled up the drop-off point? So, right, you know, like we use Wistia, right? And in Wistia, you've got a graph of, you know, where's the drop-off, right? And we love to look at the drop-off. Can we see where, you know, like where's the drop-off, and so that we're gonna do something. We're going to go back in and we're going to tweak it, right? And 99 out of 100 times for a client who comes to me and they show me the graph, I say, I don't even need to see your graph, and let me predict where the big drop-off point is. It's within the first 90 seconds. Am I right? And they're always like, yeah. How'd you know? And here's the reality, and this is all kidding aside. This is the takeaway. The takeaway is this: that oftentimes you're gonna see the big drop off up front, relative, no matter what you do. But more often than not, you see this precipitous drop off immediately, right? Within the first 30 seconds, 35 seconds, and then it evens out. It's because of this. It's because they just started reeling in. They didn't set the hook. They just started reeling in. And what I mean by that is that they got the attention of the prospect. Right? And then the lead didn't set the emotional hook. The lead didn't do the job of setting the hook. The prospect said, let me see what this is about. And then they got there and they pressed play and they said, not what I thought. Doesn't get me excited, doesn't get me juiced up. You see, the lead has to set that hook. It's not the time or the place to get into the marketing argument. It's not the time or the place. Like, you know, like I think Mark, who always said, you got to sell to the heart first, then the head. Convince the heart, then the head. You got to get that emotional buy-in first. You got to get them jacked first. And then, you know, heart-wise, and then you could show them how. You start reeling in too early, they're going to swim off. And so you've got to have that emotional sale first. Anything?
Well, yeah, actually, this is a good.
Shall you start over?
Yes. In the beginning, there was a puddle with 2 tiny amoeba, and no, you know, it's so funny that you are so close to Mark because you're like his spirit brother or spirit animal or something. You're so much like him. Yeah, because minus the money. Minus the money. Now, Mark, there have been so many presentations that I've done with Mark. There was one that I did in front of like 300 people in London, and I was up, and it was like a thing. We had a technical difficulty, and so it was hard to get it started. So I had to like re-warm up the audience and everything. And about 10 minutes in, Mark said, "Look, that's a good point there, John. Can I throw a little bit of something extra onto that?" And 25 minutes later, I got the microphone back. I should just bring chips and eat the chips. No, but he always said something wise, and all of that was very wise, and the break point there is useful. I think one of the biggest things that I saw this year that was eye-opening for me was that on one of those copywriting calls, they showed the Hotjar videos. Were you on that call? So they had this thing where they track when as soon as I get the microphone, my voice quits. Yeah. So they have this thing. Yeah, I don't want that on film, me whispering in your ear. They have this thing where they can track they can actually visualize as the person scrolls through the promotion. We can see what device they're looking on, and see where where the cursor goes while they're moving through, or where their finger touches. So a lot of these people, they come in, a VSL starts, they let it play for a little bit, then they scroll around a little bit, then they click out of it, and then they go, and you can see them move up, and they read the lead, they move it up a little, they read a little bit more of the lead, move it up a little. Some of them close the page, no hook, no setting of the hook. Some of them go, they skim down and they fly. And if it's on an iPhone, which now like 60 or 70%, some crazy percentage is now on mobile, they don't just fly, they zoom past, blinding. You can't even tell it's letters that are going past. And then they might see a chart or something, and they'll stop, and they'll go and they'll read a little bit, or a subhead, and they'll read. And then they fly again, they go right to the offer, they go slowly through the offer, and they either click order or they don't. And it's depressing when you think you just spent a month writing that promotion, laboring over. You spent 2 hours trying to find out which year it was that FDR outlawed gold and why. And they flew past that little bullet point because you figure they don't care. You have no idea where they're going to stop in that middle. So you have to write all of it like they're going to read all of it, and you have to convince yourself that they love it just as much as you do and dream about it and everything. But what they really do is they read that lead, And if the emotional hook gets set in that lead, some of them are going to zoom right past and go to the offer page and place an order. You can't just leave a big blank space, lorem ipsum, whatever, dolor, something in the middle. You have to write stuff there, but that's that lead and that offer. So that's all I want to add.